The only country that really worries me is the country of Germany. I don't know if you guys are history buffs or not, but...
How does Norm Macdonald tell a joke? When it comes to telling jokes, there are very few comedians who are at the caliber of Norm Macdonald. It seems like when you watch him tell a story, it very quickly turns into pure chaos. But in that chaos, a tremendous amount of humor and laughter can be found.
Hey, let me ask you this. Did you ever toss a prostitute off a bridge?
What Norm does may seem like a mystery to you, but Mark Twain details exactly what he does in the book How to Tell a Story in Others, and we will get into that in just a second. You could be watching him tell a simple one-liner joke about a moth entering a podiatrist's office. You may even know the punchline for this joke in particular, but the way Norm diverts away from the ending of the joke to give us a therapy session from the moth's perspective makes you completely forget that he's telling you a joke. He begins sharing how the moth is working a dead-end job for a terrible boss in a loveless marriage, and how his children are very sick. And by this point he's gone so far off the deep end, you've completely forgotten about where the joke is supposed to go because of your investment in the moth's struggles. Throughout the story, every nook and cranny, Norm makes you laugh over and over again, and he hasn't even delivered the punchline yet. Then eventually, after you've eaten out of the palm of his hand for enough time, Norm throws away the punchline in a fashion where you feel like an idiot for not expecting it. How on earth did Norm pull this off so effortlessly any time he appeared on late night television? First of all, Norm Macdonald has been doing stand-up comedy for well over a decade, in some of these clips over 2 decades, so by the nature of repetition, Norm had mastered the art of his comedic delivery and his ability to tell a humorous story long before a lot of his most popular clips you've even seen on late night TV. Along with that, Norm was an avid reader who greatly appreciated the works of writers like Leo Tolstoy and Mark Twain. Mark Twain actually wrote a short novel called How to Tell a Story in Others. This is what I will be using today to help illustrate exactly how Norm Macdonald tells a joke on late night TV. When you open the book, in paragraph 2, Mark Twain says, "There are several kinds of stories, but only one difficult kind, the humorous. I will talk mainly about that one. The humorous story is American, the comic story is English, the witty story is French. The humorous story depends for its effect upon the manner of the telling, the comic story and the witty story upon the matter." Then in paragraph 3 it reads, "The humorous story may be spun out to great length and may wander around as much as it pleases and arrive nowhere in particular, but the comic and witty stories must be brief and end with a point. The humorous story bubbles gently along, the others burst." When you read this, what do you immediately think of? It almost feels like Mark Twain wrote this right after watching a Norm Macdonald joke on Conan's late night show. It emphasizes that the destination in the humorous story is not of any real significance, and that the constant setting and breaking of expectations is what makes it incredibly special and entertaining for the listeners. However, the comic story that you typically hear from friends or family members is essentially just one big build-up for an often mediocre or unsatisfying ending. Anyone can tell the comic story, but it takes a lot of practice and patience to tell the humorous story. This type of story resembles anti-humor in the capacity that the ending is sometimes anticlimactic, but I think the biggest distinction is that anti-humor is a joke told with the intention of its unfunniness being humorous, but the humorous story is mainly told while the artist just ensures that the journey is enjoyable with less of an emphasis on the ending of the joke. Mark Twain even says in the next paragraph when he writes, "The humorous story is strictly a work of art, high and delicate art, and only an artist can tell it." This is why I preface this analysis by telling you how Norm had been doing stand-up for decades before we ever heard the moth joke or heard him call his wife a battle axe. To tell any of these jokes the way Norm tells them takes many hours and many years of hard work and repetition. Mark Twain is not exaggerating when he says it is a high and delicate art that can only be told by an artist who has mastered the ability of comedic delivery and storytelling. Twain details the difference between the humorous story and comic story even more so in the next paragraph when he writes, "The humorous story is told gravely. The teller does his best to conceal the fact that he even dimly suspects that there is anything funny about it. But the teller of the comic story tells you beforehand that it is one of the funniest things he has ever heard, then tells it with eager delight and is the first person to laugh when he gets through, and sometimes if he has had good success, he is so glad and happy that he will repeat the nub of it and glance around from face to face, collecting applause, and then repeat it again. It is a pathetic thing to see. This is the difference between a joke that Norm Macdonald tells and a joke that your dad tells at a Thanksgiving dinner. When I first read this paragraph, I immediately thought of the most convoluted joke ever that Norm does on the Conan O'Brien show.
Went by the name of Jacques de Gautier. While I was scrambling to get out of high school, Jacques Zagatineau had already...
I think you just changed his last name.
Well, you know, a man grows.
He pretends there's absolutely nothing funny about the line, "a man grows," when he delivers it so subtly. This is an incredibly funny subversion, but Norm says it as if he has no idea it's about to crack the entire room up, and that's part of the beauty that Mark Twain articulates for the humorous story. Very often, of course, the rambling and disjointed humorous story finishes with a nub, point, snapper, or whatever you like to call it. Then the listener must be alert, for in many cases the teller will divert attention from the nub by dropping it in a carefully casual and indifferent way, with the pretense that he doesn't know it is a nub. Another fascinating thing about Norm's delivery is when he fools you into thinking a story or joke is done, and you quickly realize after you laugh that you're still in the setup of the joke, and that you're just trying to pay attention and see where he's going to take you next. Mark Twain also detailed someone named Artemus Ward, who commonly used this trick when he was telling a humorous story, where he would deliver a joke, and when the audience took a second to catch and they started to laugh, he looked up with this innocent surprise on his face, as if he didn't just say something hilarious. Another important part that Mark Twain highlights about the humorous story is the pause. Mark Twain says, "The pause is an exceedingly important feature in any kind of story, and a frequently recurring feature too. It is a dainty thing, and delicate and also uncertain and treacherous, for it must be exactly the right length, no more and no less, or it fails of its purpose and makes trouble. If the pause is too short, the impressive point is past, and if too long, the audience have had time to divine that a surprise is intended, and then you can't surprise them, of course." Another thing Norm is a master at is exactly that in his comedic timing, and he uses the pause as much as he can to make a funny story even funnier, as mentioned by Mark Twain in How to Tell a Story in Others. Now, I have no evidence that Norm Macdonald read this story by Mark Twain and used it as his blueprint for late-night television appearances, but I do know that Norm Macdonald was an avid reader of Mark Twain's literature and has a deep appreciation for his work. I can confidently state, though, that this short novel by Mark Twain describes in great detail what Norm Macdonald is well known for in his late-night appearances, because the format is extremely similar. I'm going to show you each of the elements we covered from the novel in a joke Norm tells on Conan titled, "Norm Macdonald Tells the Most Convoluted Joke Ever."
Jacques de Gautier. Jacques Zagatineau.
I think you just changed his last name.
Well, you know, a man grows.
As I mentioned earlier, Norm setting up Jacques de Gautier's name twice and then saying it wrong as Jacques de Goutinat the third time just to slide in a silly joke sets up a sequence of expectations that are then shattered by Norm, leading to a huge laugh from the audience and Conan. Specifically, Mark Twain says, "To string incongruities and absurdities together in a wandering and sometimes purposeless way and seem innocently unaware that they are absurdities is the basis of the American art, if my position is correct." And Norm does this right here perfectly. The next part that stands out to me is when Norm Macdonald tells Conan about SeaWorld as if nobody in the world has ever heard of it.
SeaWorld there. You know how they have the SeaWorld? You know, with the different fish. You know.
I didn't know that, but okay, yes.
Beluga.
The SeaWorld, I've been there many a time.
Okay, so
Conan plays along with it, and in the meantime, the crowd is eating this part up because Norm plays it off so well that he's sincerely talking about it as if nobody knows what SeaWorld is.
So I was checking out the beluga whales and stuff, and I look over, and who do you think I see?
I hope it's that guy.
No, it was just an attendant, but...
And in the next clip here, Norm sets us up to think he's seeing Jacques de Gatineau at SeaWorld, and when Norm asks the question to set up the pause, Conan applies pressure to the pause and makes it even more powerful. Then right as the crowd quiets down, Norm delivers that it's not Jacques de Gatineau with perfect timing, and it causes the crowd and Conan to burst into laughter once again. Then after Norm has warmed us up, he delivers the final punchline where Jacques de Gatineau is feeding baby dolphins and says to him, "I'm serving a youthful porpoise."
So he was feeding these baby dolphins, you know, and I said, "I'm ashamed of you, Jacques de Gatineau." He said, "I think I'm serving a youthful porpoise." Now, I believe that
If there were no incongruities and absurdities in the story, this would have certainly been the shittiest comic story ever. But because Norm understands that the journey in the story is more important than the destination, he's able to deliver this corny-ass punchline and get a big laugh from it. Norm made the entire story funny and interesting to listen to, so as a result, the ending, being anticlimactic, doesn't really hurt the joke at all because it's not the landing point. When you understand the chasm of difference between a generic comic story and a beautifully delivered humorous story, you come to appreciate Norm's ability to pleasantly waste your time even more so than before. This is why Norm is held at such a high regard in his late-night appearances. This is why Conan speaks so highly of what Norm did in telling these fake stories and wasting everybody's time so highly. Telling a joke like this takes years and years of hard work, and it cannot be learned overnight unless you are simply gifted beyond measures. All in all, this is how Norm Macdonald tells a joke. Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching to the end. A quick reminder that the best way that you can help this channel for 100% free is by subscribing down below so that you can see more content when it comes out in the future. I believe 99% of the people who watched my last video on Norm Macdonald were not subscribed to the channel. So let's go ahead and fix that. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Take care of yourselves. God bless, and I'll see you in the next one. This is the legendary trolling of Anthony Jeselnik.
He won't be fully appreciated until he's dead.
So I always looked up to him, always loved him, which is why meeting him and getting to work with him was such a huge disappointment.
If you're a big fan of stand-up comedy, you're probably well aware of the comedian Anthony Jeselnik, who is well known for his incredibly dark one-liners and his arrogant, over-the-top attitude on stage. Anthony is a very great comedian, but there was a time in his career when he was outsmarted by one of his heroes, comedian Norm Macdonald, while they were working together. This is the legendary trolling of Anthony Jeselnik.
He won't be fully appreciated until he's dead.
So I always looked up to him, always loved him, which is why meeting him and getting to work with him was such a huge disappointment.
If you're a big fan of stand-up comedy, you're probably well aware of the comedian Anthony Jeselnik, who is well known for his incredibly dark one-liners and his arrogant, over-the-top attitude on stage. Anthony is a very great comedian, but there was a time in his career when he was outsmarted by one of his heroes, comedian Norm Macdonald, while they were working together. As a fan of both of these comedians, this story is an incredibly humorous one, and if you're unaware of the story about the time Norm and Anthony worked together on Last Comic Standing, then you've come to the right place. I will be detailing the story between these two comedians and how it was a legendary moment when Anthony Jeselnik was trolled by a comedian who he genuinely admired. To get a crystal clear understanding of what happened between these two, we need to start off by establishing the full timeline of events. In early 2015, Anthony Jeselnik was called and asked by his manager if he wanted to replace comedian JB Smoove as the host of the reality television talent competition show on NBC titled Last Comic Standing, to which Anthony Jeselnik replied, "Why the fuck would I want to do that? That show sucks." Anthony originally wanted nothing to do with the offer, but then he was informed that the judges would be Keenan Ivory Wayans, Roseanne Barr, and Norm Macdonald. Norm Macdonald is one of Anthony's biggest comedic influences, and upon realizing he'd have the opportunity to work with Norm, he would accept the offer to host Last Comic Standing on the spot. Upon accepting the offer, the season of Last Comic Standing would air on July 22nd, 2015, and during the shooting of the show is when all the action would take place. Despite Anthony's eagerness to work with his hero and former Doghouse owner, Norm Macdonald, he cited that the first few days of filming were incredibly rocky and difficult, and that he and Norm did not get along at all.
They asked me to do it, and I thought, oh, that sounds awful. And they're like, no, it's you and Norm Macdonald. And I was like, oh, I'd love to work with Norm Macdonald, thinking that it would be fun to work with Norm Macdonald. And then we just hated each other for like 8 days. We would just like yell at each other. We would like yell at each other. We'd have to like take breaks to calm down. And it's like hard when you're like upsetting one of your idols. You're just like, shit.
He also expressed disappointment in the fact that NBC decided to cut out all of the fights that him and Norm got in, because even though it was uncomfortable for him, he believed that it was great television and that people would really enjoy it.
And then we would talk after each episode and be like, well, at least it's going to be great television. And then they cut all that shit out. They're like, oh, this interesting stuff. No, we got to get rid of that to watch these open micers go head to head.
According to Anthony Jeselnik, NBC also messed up in the editing room and did not do Norm justice at all, because apparently he had some very blunt and brutal moments with some of the contestants where he absolutely trashed them as comedians.
And Norm was like borderline a monster to people. Like, he would say things that would kill me, that I would be like on the floor dying laughing. Like, I would have to take time. One of my favorites was he told this one girl, he said, he goes, "I think that you are incapable of writing a joke." And she goes, "Oh, well, I'll work on that." She's trying to be nice. She's like, "Okay, thank you. I'll work on that." And he goes, No, don't work on it. I said you are incapable." And that was the most like crushing thing he could have said to someone.
So this one lady came up on stage to do comedy, and Norm didn't see any way that this lady could do comedy.
I'm not going to guide any lady through comedy. That would take me, first of all, I'd have to figure out how a lady could do comedy. You know?
What a jip that turned out to be. You know it's not a jip? Liking the video and subscribing to the channel if you're finding value in the content you're watching. I appreciate you guys watching the video. So Norm was incredibly vicious towards some of the contestants. I actually recall one clip where this one comedian did some material making fun of the Bible, and Norm basically called him a hack while the other two judges called him brave. Check this out.
He was like, "Men do not live on bread alone," Matthew 4:4. And it's like, everybody's a little bit magic. Harry Potter, chapter 7.
I disagree. I don't think the Bible joke is brave at all. I think if you're going to take on an entire religion, you should maybe know what you're talking about.
So Norm was very direct to the contestants when he didn't like them. I mean, he could not have been more leashed. Anthony would then proceed to talk about why him and Norm fought so much. He describes it as two alpha males trying to show who is the funniest comedian, which to me just sounds like Anthony being a deeply closeted gay man.
What are you fighting about? Just like, who's going to be the funny one? It's just two alpha males.
Anthony's not lying though, because there was a couple clips of him and Norm exchanging wits, and it's pretty funny. There's one clip in particular I will show because personally it made me laugh.
When you were at the ATM machine, you were no longer a black guy. You were a human being.
That was great. Almost racist, but then you got it right under the bar, Norm. That's why I love you.
This clip makes me sad because if that was left in the final cut by NBC, then there must be some absolutely horrendous but hilarious moments between Anthony and Norm that were left on the cutting room floor. However, Anthony proceeds to talk about how after the first few days of working together, he and Norm started to get along better, and unsurprisingly, the two of them would become a unique and unstoppable comedic force together, and they would make for some of the funniest moments on the show. But none of it made it to the final cut. Then after the taping of Last Comic Standing, Anthony details an exchange between him and Norm when they were backstage getting ready to record press episodes with Larry King on his show. While backstage, they were brainstorming ways to promote the show because apparently Norm had no idea how he was going to do it. Then Anthony suggests that they go on the radio in interviews, and when asked about each other, they would just publicly insult each other and talk shit to promote the show. When Norm heard this, he agreed to it immediately and said he thought it was a great idea.
And so we're backstage at Larry King, and he's like, "I don't know how to promote this thing. I don't know what to talk about. So when I talk about these comics," and I go, "No, let's do this. Let's say that we had this horrible rivalry, and that we hate each other, and just talk trash about like things we would do to each other backstage, and like all these how much we hate each other." He goes, "That's great. Let's do that. That's really funny." And I'm like, "All right, great."
There was one interview where Anthony was asked about it, and he stuck to the plan for every single interview he did. Here's one that comes to mind.
You know, like not every joke has to hit. You don't want to be a crowd pleaser. You want to be a great comedian. And Norm seemed to always be going that way. So I always looked up to him, always loved him. Which is why meeting him and getting to work with him was such a huge disappointment.
Norm Macdonald, who was amazing.
He'll be here in a little while.
He wasn't that great, to be honest. Like, I know he's probably listening to this a little bit, but like, between you and me, it's more my show.
It wasn't a bit. It was like he was pontificating about things, and female comics especially got it rough.
Yeah.
And it didn't make. He would love someone and hate someone else. And it didn't make. There was no rhyme or reason.
Then Anthony talks about how when backstage, he was the first person to record with Larry King, and when Anthony was asked about working with Norm, he said, quote, "Larry, Norm Macdonald is a piece of shit," end quote. According to Anthony, he could hear Norm laughing backstage. Then when he went backstage, Norm was still laughing about what he had said. Then when Norm goes on Larry King, Anthony's backstage listening, and then Larry asks him about Anthony Jeselnik. Then Norm proceeds to say, quote, "Larry, Anthony Jeselnik is one of the greats, end quote. Absolutely hilarious. Additionally, Anthony would continue to do more and more press while keeping up with this plan of trashing Norm every time to promote the show, and Norm would do the exact opposite. Anthony actually talks about how he believed that Norm had just completely forgotten about the conversation they had, but in this interview it would appear that Anthony did not realize that he had just been played like a fiddle by Norm Macdonald.
So I go around for weeks, and I'm just throwing Norm under the bus, talking about how much I hated him and what an awful person he is. And Norm has completely forgotten that we've made this deal. Norm is just talking about how nice I am and how funny I am everywhere we go. And he still hasn't brought it up to me, but I can't think he's happy.
Now, considering the fact that Norm is now taking a dirt nap, there's no real way for us to 100% confirm if Norm forgot or if he just didn't follow through with the plan, knowing full and well that Anthony trashing him would make him look like a world-class douche, especially if Norm isn't being rude as well. However, if I was a betting man like Artie Lang, I'd put money on the fact that Norm absolutely knew this would make Jeselnik look like an ass, so that's why he did it. In fact, that's what a lot of the Norm fanbase has also agreed on, so I think it's pretty safe to say that's what happened. It's a funny story, and in fact, it's one of my favorite stories because it involves two comedians I really enjoy. As much as I like Jeselnik, he had to take this one on the chin because he was trolled by one of the masters of trolling. Furthermore, some of the details of this story I picked up from seeing Anthony Jeselnik live very recently, where he details the interaction between him and Norm and how Norm was the only celebrity he was ever really excited to meet. And if Anthony releases a new special sometime soon, you will all get to hear this story from his perspective for yourself. I like Anthony, I love Norm, but I just thought this story was too good to not share on the channel, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it. All in all, this was the legendary trolling of Anthony Jeselnik. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching the video to the end. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to support the channel by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and turning on post notifications down below, because that's a free way to help the channel out, and it also helps the community grow brick by brick. This is Norm Macdonald vs. O.J. Simpson, a full recap.
Well, it is finally official. Murder is legal in the state of California. I no longer take that position with O.J. Simpson. He was found not guilty. I see him as the greatest rusher in the... That's all he's guilty of to me, is the greatest rusher in the history of the NFL.
With the recent death of football player and acquitted murderer O.J. Simpson, the world of comedy has erupted with conversations about O.J. Simpson and made plenty of jokes at his expense. Unfortunately for the world, one of the all-time kings of O.J. Simpson jokes, Norm Macdonald, was unable to log into Twitter and make jokes because he's currently in the middle of a dirt nap. O.J. Simpson and Norm Macdonald have quite the history, and it makes sense because they both have a lot in common when you think about it. They're both savages at their crafts, they're both black, and they were both murdered by some douchebag named Cancer. I don't know this Cancer guy, but I'd like to punch him right in the goddamn face. No, but seriously, these two legendary men were brought together by comedy, and today I will be paying homage to these two killers and covering some of the iconic and timeless moments featuring them that bless the world of comedy. If that sounds interesting to you, then let's hop right into it. Picture this. It's 1994, and you're casually reading the news, and you see in the news that Nicole Simpson and Ronald Goldman were found stabbed to death. And you then find out that O.J. Simpson, one of the greatest running backs in the history of the NFL, is suspect number one. At the same time this is happening, Saturday Night Live is very popular and buzzing about the trial immediately after O.J. Simpson was taken into custody and formally charged with murder. A lot of the comedy on the show was relatively neutral and not too on the nose, despite the fact that a lot of them probably thought O.J. was guilty behind closed doors. However, there was one man at Saturday Night Live that was different from all the rest. One fearless host of the Weekend Update news routine that was not afraid to say what he really felt about O.J. Simpson. That man was Ellen DeGeneres. Just kidding. That man was actually Norman Jean Macdonald. If you're a subscriber of this channel, then Norm Macdonald needs absolutely no introduction for you. But if you're not a subscriber of this channel, you can change that really quick if you're finding value in the content you're watching. Anyway, Norm Macdonald is often described by fellow comedians and fans of comedy alike as one of the most ballsy, fearless, and dangerous Weekend Update hosts to ever sit behind the desk.
Andy, you said something once. It was after a Norm segment, and Norm had annihilated. He had done really well, as he always did. You said to me, that guy doesn't care in a way that frightens me.
During the trial, Norm was absolutely vicious with the O.J. Simpson jokes. It seemed like Norm would have several new O.J. jokes every single episode of Saturday Night Live. Some of these jokes are considered to be some of the best jokes to ever be told on Weekend Update.
In a brilliant move during closing arguments, Simpson attorney Johnny Cochran put on the knit cap prosecutors say O.J. wore the night he committed the murders. Although O.J. may have hurt his case when he suddenly blurted out, hey, easy with that. That's my lucky stabbing hat. And in court this week, Cato Kalin testified that O.J. Simpson did not appear angry before or after the period of his wife's murder. But Kalin admitted he could have been a touch edgy while he was actually murdering her.
Nobody had really gone at O.J. Simpson like this before, and given his status as one of the most famous and successful football players at the time, this made the case extremely divisive amongst Americans. Norm would lean right into this divisiveness and go right for the throat time and time again, and it would lead to him getting some pushback while working at Saturday Night Live from management. Norm would write most of these jokes with one of the head writers at the time who was named Jim Downey, and Jim has talked about how they went through the process of writing these jokes before. Many months later, in September 1994, the murder trial would begin for O.J. Simpson, and with this commenced Norm and Jim Downey launching an absolute assault on O.J. Simpson and anyone who thought he was innocent. Obviously, with this came many more jokes, and with many more jokes came hot water for Norm Macdonald behind the scenes at Saturday Night Live. Norm would be confronted by Don Ohlmeyer about the O.J. Simpson jokes, and Don was one of the executive producers at NBC who was very high up on the corporate ladder in the entertainment world. The reason for Don's frustration with Norm was that he happened to be very good friends with O.J. Simpson, which is an odd choice when you think about it. I've never been friends with a murderer before, but something tells me that those guys are real jerks. Don would tell Norm and Jim to tone down with the O.J. jokes a little bit, which was an absolutely ridiculous request when you consider the fact that Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live was a heavily topical news segment which was made to poke fun at current events. So what the hell were they supposed to do? Just ignore one of the biggest criminal trials of all time to make the producer more comfortable? To hell with that. Eventually, after many more hilarious jokes by Norm and Jim, the O.J. Simpson case would conclude with the Juice being found not guilty of murdering those two people that he absolutely murdered. Then Don would approach Norm and Jim again and say to them now that the trial was over and that they should just move on and stop doing O.J. jokes because at this point it's old news. As you could all probably predict, that's not the cloth from which Norm is cut. After being told this, he would then go on to open Weekend Update with this joke immediately after the trial's conclusion.
Thanks, I'm Norm Macdonald, and now the fake news. Well, it is finally official. Murder is legal in the state of California.
After this happened, Don Ohlmeyer made a move to have Jim Downey removed from the show as a head writer, and Don brought this to Norm's attention. When he asked Norm if he was fine with them doing this, Norm said that he would not do the show without Jim Downey, and that if they fired Jim from the show, that they would have to fire him as well. An incredibly loyal move from Norm. They really didn't want to let Norm go, but it was necessary if Jim was going to be fired, so both of them ate the bullet. And then it was perpetuated that the reason Norm was fired was because he wasn't funny, and we all know how that turned out, because Norm would then return to host a few years later. Anyway, even after his firing from SNL, Norm Macdonald would not lay off the O.J. jokes. He would then host the ESPYs just 1 year after his firing, and this would once again demonstrate how vicious Norm was when he went after someone. With the ESPYs, we got this golden moment at the end of the show.
And there's Charles Woodson. How about that? And what a season he had. Great, man. He became the first defensive player to win the Heisman Trophy. And congratulations, Charles. That is something that no one can ever take away from you. Unless you kill your wife and a waiter, in which case... all bets are off.
Despite no response from O.J. Simpson publicly about Norm's many jokes towards him and his guilt, O.J. would wisely stay silent and just never address these jokes. You might think that this would conclude the saga of Norm Macdonald and O.J. Simpson, but similar to the jurors who thought O.J. was innocent, you would be wrong. In June 2007, O.J. Simpson would release his book titled If I Did It, Confessions of a Killer, which is a tongue-in-cheek way of O.J. discussing how he would have went about his life if he did murder his wife and a waiter. But lucky for us, the book is listed in the fiction section at libraries, and O.J. is clearly not guilty of anything. Then later in September 2007, O.J. would find himself in legal trouble once again. This time it was for stealing his own memorabilia that he claimed was stolen from him. He was found guilty and sentenced to 33 years in prison with the chance for parole after 9 years. When this news was released, it would lead to Norm writing a new chunk of material about O.J. Simpson that we would then hear on his 2011 stand-up comedy special titled Me Doing Stand-Up in one of the the funniest bits about the O.J. Simpson trial to ever be recorded. In this bit, Norm claims he's changed his opinion on O.J. Simpson given his acquittal, and then states how he finds his new sentencing highly unfair. Listen to this.
Well, I've changed my mind on O.J. No, I'll tell you what I feel about O.J. As much as I was indignant about his acquittal, I'm equally indignant about his going to prison for stealing his fucking own shirts. I don't think that's fair. I don't think if you steal your own shirts, you should get 35 consecutive life sentences.
So Norm once again finds the funniest way possible to joke about OJ, but this time in a much more sly and indirect way. Absolutely phenomenal. In the meantime, Norm would make many tweets about OJ Simpson. Some of the jabs that were directed at OJ, he probably himself could have found humor in. For example, this tweet of Norm saying he knows where OJ is golfing because of the house behind him, or this tweet where he says he's in Vegas with OJ and they're both golfing and how fun it could be, or this now deleted tweet where OJ says his mother is the only person to call him Orenthal, and Norm replies, "and lived to talk about it." Great use of Twitter from Normie. And then many years later, Norm would be on Lights Out with David Spade on December 2nd, 2019, where he would speak about O.J. Simpson for the final time. I'll show you that here.
Now in this cancel culture and everything, I have to say, I no longer take that position with O.J. Simpson. He was found not guilty. See him as the greatest rusher that's all he's guilty of to me, is the greatest rusher in the history of the NFL.
Yep.
Maybe I was the greatest rusher to judgment.
All that for that?
Then just 2 years after this, Norm Macdonald would die of cancer in September 2021. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that O.J. Simpson changed his name to Cancer before killing Norm. It truly was a tragedy to find out that O.J. outlived Norm Macdonald, and it's even sadder to know that O.J. had one less person on Earth that he could kill. Then just recently, as I typed this, it was released that O.J. Simpson had lost his life to cancer, which is really sad to think about because O.J. Simpson won so many football games in his life, but the last thing he ever did was lose. What a loser that guy was! Upon the announcement of O.J. Simpson's death, there's a plethora of people who are going back and watching Norm Macdonald on Saturday Night Live roasting O.J. Simpson, and it's bringing a whole new appreciation for Norm that hasn't always been there. It's nice to see Norm getting some of the recognition he finally deserves for killing his wife in a wait a second. What I meant to say was killing it on the Weekend Update. Anyway, I hope you guys learned something from this video, and if you like it, you can subscribe to the channel and like the video. Also, there's some bonus content on my Patreon if you want to check that out in the description below. But all in all, this was Norm Macdonald vs. O.J. Simpson, a full recap.
This year, he says he's only going to eat meat that he's actually killed. And I was wondering, what are you adhering to lately?
I'm a vegetarian, a strict vegetarian.
No, have you done that?
Well, I eat chicken.
Let's not all that.
That's not vegetarian.
I'm not. I said I'm not strict. I eat chicken and
steaks
beef, pork. I ate raw game. Did you ever eat? It's not dead yet.
No, you're
and
over
you
there.
eat it, and as you're eating it, their death throes are making you hungrier.
There's nothing.
That's better than a soybean.
Yeah, you're right.
Which sounds better, that or soybean?
Listen.
According to retailers, the most popular Halloween mask this year is O.J. Simpson. And the most popular Halloween greeting is, "I'll kill you and that guy who's bringing over your glasses," or treat. This week on Larry King Live, Marlon Brando made the shocking statement that Hollywood is, quote, run by Jews. In response, outraged Jewish organizations made it snow in New York in April. See, I think we should get the homicide out of the White House and get like a fresh start, because we don't want any more murderers.
I think we should just go on to the next question.
Who are the murderers?
Yeah.
Oh, Clinton, he murdered a guy.
Yeah, you know, we're not allowed to, you're not allowed to put out no accusations without
That's a little too far.
That's the way it does work.
Let's just go on to the next question.
Yeah.
This is not my week. What can I tell you?
Oh, it's not mine either, and I'm being very nice, okay? Be a good boy. Now, Norm.
Do you never hear that?
No. Listen, we don't need to talk
want to get
about
into
that.
this, and I don't want to hear it, and this is not the place to make those accusations, and you're supposed to be funny. Let's get on to the next question. So get with it.
There you go.
This is a live show.
Live. but you have been properly chastised by Barbara. So I'm now going to ask the next question.
I thought it was a matter of record.
Shut up! Shut up! Look,
Okay.
let me do this, okay?
I'll tell you what's a matter of record. You will not be invited back if you don't shut up. All right, now.
You've admitted that you're lazy. I think you've read 6 books in your life.
I've read 6.
6. What kind of a woman would be attracted to you, do you think?
Well, I have a lot of money. Hey, for the 9th consecutive year, Nick, JetBlue Airlines ranked first for satisfaction among all North American airlines. But you know what ranked least in satisfaction? 9/11 Airlines. What a terrible name for an airline. It reminds me of that tragedy. Oh, 9/11. Yeah, don't laugh at 9/11 again. 9/11. I tried to tell him not to laugh. Adam. I know. I walked through blood and bones in the streets of Manhattan trying to find my brother.
Jesus.
Yeah, he was in northern Canada.
Here we see the president and the first bitch. Hey, slow down, you bitch. Let me catch up.
When I accepted the honor of performing here tonight, one thought crossed my mind, and that was, please, God, don't let me bomb in front of the president. But I'm not worried. What the hell do I care? You know, I worked on all my jokes. I got a lot of help from my joke writer, Don Imus. He was helped me a lot. Are you familiar? You know this guy? He's a funny guy. He wrote some jokes. Anyways, the dinner was great. You enjoyed the dinner? We had some salmon. Yeah, it was delicious. It was great, and I thought it was refreshing to see Democrats serve something other than subpoenas for a change. I thought that was nice, you know? I'll be doing some jokes later. I just thought I'd...
Well, one time I was on his other show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and it was Celebrity Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, so the questions are a little easier.
Yeah, you won.
I heard they didn't give you the money.
Yeah.
No, they give it to a charity. They don't tell you.
That's
No, they give it to sick children.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, that's nice. They need money too.
Are you drunk? Because all you did was ride a cooler and you're sweating.
I am. Well, it's hot it's hotter than a $2
Well, he's
pistol
got like
in here.
12 layers on.
Yeah,
I think.
I thought it was going to be really cold.
Well, you're from Canada. This should be springtime for you.
No, I know I'm from Canada, but I'm still a human being. Like it's not like we evolved differently. Yeah, no, I'm from the frozen north.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets colder than a. It gets colder than a.
Oh, here it comes.
No.
Get your finger on the panic button.
No, it gets colder than a vampire's demeanor.
Okay, that's better.
Wow. Surprisingly cerebral.
What are you guys up to, man?
We're joined by the talented trio called the Lonely Island.
Yeah,
who
you
will
know
be
what I
on the
call
big.
them?
What do you call them?
I call them Sandberg and the other couple of fellas.
The Mind Squad
The
is
other
how Rolling Stone put it.
The iron horse of broadcasting.
It's iron. You don't pronounce it iron.
That's what everybody tells me.
It's the iron horse. Like Lou Gehrig was the iron horse of baseball.
Yes.
The word I-R-O-N is iron. No, iron.
Iron.
That's what makes English the world's toughest language.
Yeah.
Right? Sure.
It is the
Because
toughest language.
to
To me,
learn.
it's the easiest.
Yeah, well, you were born with it.
In his book, O.J. Simpson says that he would have taken a bullet or stood in front of a train for Nicole. Man, I'm going to tell you, that is some bad luck when the one guy who would have died for you kills you. That's probably... You don't get worse luck than that.
about this girl? She's mad at you. She was on the Greg Fitzsimmons show. Did you hear anything about this?
I know Greg Fitzsimmons.
Yeah, Greg does a show for us, and Greg was interviewing some girl, and she was going off.
I know who it is.
What's the girl's name?
You know, me and Norm have worked with her before. That's why he's going to laugh when I say the name. Laura Keitlinger. Hates your guts.
Did you know she hates you?
No.
Oh, my God. Do you want to hear the clip? Sure. All right, hold on.
By the way, wait, can I interrupt your old friend, Norm Macdonald? Did you guys write together on,
He's not a friend of mine.
Roseanne,
right?
Well, I was just using it loosely.
Now, you had a reaction just now to Norm Macdonald.
Mm-hmm.
Not a friend, not a fan.
You worked with him, though.
Mm-hmm.
At Saturday Night Live.
Roseanne.
No, I missed him at Roseanne. Well, I came in, and he was supposed to be the my guide through SNL, and it turned out that...
Well, I mean, I barely remember Laura from the show, except for her hit characters, obviously.
I don't even know who she is.
But
she's very talented.
She makes Morweena Banks look like Gilda Radner. But no.
You had a look of surprise on your face, even when this woman said, well, you know, Norm was supposed to be my guide through Saturday Night Live.
Guide?
Did anyone inform you that you were her guide?
No.
There was no such mentoring program at Saturday Night Live, was it?
No, she came in directly after me, so I wouldn't be her...
mentor?
Yeah, I'm not going to guide any lady through comedy. That would take me, first of all, I'd have to figure out how a lady could do comedy. And then I'd have to... The new people, hey, guess what? There's a young girl that's middling attractive that swears a lot. Let's get her. What? Is that the new fucking thing?
Yeah.
Sarah Silverman, hysterical.
Right.
Who's funnier than her?
Nobody.
No, except dudes. But,
Nobody.
And people had very strong opinions on the election. You know, some people had very strong opinions one way, and other people had strong opinions the other way. And I didn't have any opinions at all. I don't have really any opinions on anything. Like, you ever watch the CNN, and they'll have the polls, you know, and it'll be like, what do you think about embryonic stem cell research? And then it'll be like, see, there you go. It'll be like 52% yes, 46% no, 6% I don't know. See? And that's me. I don't know. So I phone up the CNN, you know, and I go, hey, listen, is this the TV? Yeah, that question you asked about the embryonic stem cell research? I don't know.
And there's Charles Woodson. How about that? What a season he had. Great, man. He became the first defensive player to win the Heisman Trophy. And congratulations, Charles. That is something that no one can ever take away from you. Unless you kill your wife and a waiter, in which case, all bets are off. Just a word of advice.
How's life on the road?
I got a kid.
You have a kid?
Yeah, man, when you have a little baby, like, I guess I never loved anybody before, you know? And when I had the baby, it was like, oh my God, like you have all this love and you feel like so incredible, you know? And like single guys can't understand it, like, so I'd be telling them, I go, this is like the most unbelievable feeling you'll ever have in your life, you know? And they'll go, like, is it like crystal meth? And I'm like, he's brilliant, Byron Allen. He had that Comics Unleashed. You ever do that? Oh, you couldn't be more leashed.
There's nothing. It's not like there's nothing unleashed about it. It's not like you would have like Lenny Bruce on and like.
And he has no segue. So this is what he said to John Lovitz one time. He said, he just turned to him from, you know, he's talking to Schimmel, and then he goes to John Lovitz. He goes, now, John, I understand you're growing older. This is my promise to the people of the Video Podcast Network world. I will not eat a single morsel of food until Margaret Thatcher is dead and buried.
She died 3 weeks ago. We'll be right back with Larry King.
The weirdest show I ever see, the dating game? That's a weird show. The prize on the dating game, another contestant. Talk about cheap, you know, they chuck you somebody else. And they always do the same thing on the dating game. They get a beautiful girl, match her up with 3 big geeks, you know? Last week they had a guy, I was like a crazy guy, loony bin, psycho, wingnut, crazy guy. You can tell by the way they introduce him, you know, they go, bachelor number 2 is a shadowy, lurking character. From no fixed address, please welcome. Guy comes shambling into the studio, well-thumbed copy of Catcher in the Rye sticking out of his back pocket area. And then they made the girls ask those questions. They always be laced with sexual innuendo, you know. Girl got to go, bachelor number 2, if I were a popsicle. What would you do to me then? What? That's what it says in the card here, something about a popsicle. And then the guy goes, well, if you were a popsicle, huh? Well, first of all, I guess I'd take your wrapper off. If you know what I mean. Then I'd grab a hold of your sticks. If you know what I mean. Then I'd press you against the counter till you're broken too. But half you in the freezer till later. You know what I mean? You understand what I'm getting at there?
I play with him.
You do. How old is he now?
How old is this young man?
He's 15 years old.
15 years
You're
old.
still playing with him.
Right.
You know, it's a funny thing.
Yeah.
When he was a very young boy, you know, when he was like 3, 4, or something like that, I would play games with him. You know, like we'd play basketball or something.
Sure.
And I'd let him win.
Right.
You know, and now he can beat me at everything. And so he's like, hey, man, I always beat you at everything. I said, no, fuck, I used to let you win. You go, fuck, he doesn't believe it.
He always beat you.
Yeah, so he just thinks I'm some retard that can't beat a fucking infant.
But you know, it is rather daunting to me. I'm just a guy, you know? What the hell am I? And here I am, you know, I look out, I see President Bill Clinton, you know, I see Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, you know, media mogul Rupert Murdoch, you know, broadcast legend Larry King, you know, pornographer Larry Flint, you know, Dick Morris. The list is starting to drop off a little, folks, but still, you get the idea. It's daunting. And of course, it was very inspiring to see President Clinton up here on crutches making a speech. I mean, I thought that was just amazing, you know. I mean, it's been difficult for the president. You know, he can't jog now, and he needs help getting around, and he still occasionally suffers great pain, you know. On the upside, you got your medical marijuana, so that's, you know. You must inhale, sir. It's the only way you're going to get better.
How's the family? How's everything going?
Ah, great, man. Couldn't be better. Life is fantastic.
Yeah.
I like life, man.
You do, really?
Oh, my God. People that complain about it. First of all, you're lucky enough to be alive when you think about it. You know what I'm saying? Your mother had to have sex with your father. That your grandparents had to have sex. Great-grandparents had to have sex. It's lucky you're alive, my God.
It's amazing.
And I'm so happy every day that I'm alive
be.
because it's just a fluke. There's so many more people that never got to be alive. You know? And,
that's an interesting point. I guess you're right. If you do the math.
So when people carp about it, I'm like, man, it's the greatest gig in the world, being alive. You get to eat at Denny's, wear a hat, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, get haircuts. It is. Well, good. I'm glad.
It was revealed today that O.J. Simpson told police that Nicole Brown Simpson used to beat him up. He also claimed that she and Ron Goldman killed him.
I met that guy, Michael J. Fox,
Yeah,
And
people know him.
It was
He's
before he was
the love star.
Yeah, it was before it was out that he had that thing.
He has Parkinson's.
Yeah. But it was before that.
All right.
So I met him at Holly. What do you call that? What?
So I might ask you to go to the black and white thing in around 5 seconds.
No,
Stay
Disney World.
frosty.
No, it's quick. It's quick. Disney World. I meet him. I'm excited to meet him. So I meet him like 10 years later, and here he is. Now he's got Parkinson's. And I go, you remember me? I met you when I was young, and I met you at Disney World and everything. And he goes, yeah, I just got a thing. I'm not crazy.
Did he say that?
Yeah, I said I'm not crazy.
Oh, that's
but I didn't mean this. I didn't mean that. I just meant. Do you remember?
Listen, I've got a couple young tykes who want to kiss the ring. You ready to receive this, or you're not going to flip on these cats? Anybody who loves you, you have to torch. That's your MO.
Torch? What am I, Jeffrey Ross?
Well, let's go. Let's go.
But no, I admire people who have strong opinions, like Linda Rodstad. She did that thing, where she got up and sang and everything, and then she started talking. And then people were going, God damn, I thought she was supposed to sing. And she just kept talking, and finally they were like, come on, man, sing those only 2 songs we ever heard you sing. We're trying to... $45 ticket I'm holding here. Celebrities have, they can speak up, they're smart, some of them, most of them are dumb, but some of them, because I meet celebrities, I'm a celebrity, and so I meet celebrities, and I know as soon as I shake their hand, I know, hey, there's a dumb guy, because I'm a dumb guy myself. And I got that, how gay guys have the gaydar? I'm like that with dumb people. I'm like, hey, how's it going? Hey, I could have a conversation with you, man.
You people are just like me and you.
I know.
How many times do I have to tell you that?
Well, you tell me that all day, how I'm just like all the gay people.
Gay people are the same as everybody.
No, you mean you always tell me specifically how I think you're just calling me gay. It's one of the.
It's not an insult. He
no,
thinks it's an insult.
No, I didn't mean it.
Why would being gay be an insult?
No, I love gay people.
Yeah, I know.
Well, let's get to O.J. O.J. Simpson's lawyers say they don't want the families of Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman in the courtroom during the trial. They're afraid the presence of the family members will just remind O.J. of how much more killing he still has to do. Finally, folks, next week, Jews everywhere will be celebrating the holiday of Yom Kippur, or as non-Jews refer to it, Wednesday.
But Bob is a very, very funny man, and I often go in the booth with him,
Oh, sure.
So one time we were there, and John Fogerty was in the audience. A fortunate son, So John Fogerty was there, so Bob Uecker is a very interesting guy. He thinks of everybody as the same. He doesn't think of people as stars or anything like that. He's a very down-to-earth guy. So he was talking to me, and he says, hey, man, you know that guy? I go, yeah. He goes, that's John Fogerty, rock and roll singer. So I go, yeah, I know who it is. He goes, yeah, man. He goes, but I played in a golf tournament with him. He goes, you probably think of him as some that likes to bite the heads off of chickens, but this guy can...
That's exactly how I think of him.
This guy can get it out of the sand trap like nobody's business. So he goes, he's got a hell of a set of pipes on him. He goes, come the 7th inning stretch, I'll have him up here. He'll sing for you. So I said, no, Bob, don't do that. Like, don't have him come up and sing for me, please, He goes, what's matter, man? Don't you even know who he is? He got all mad. So I go, yes, Bob, I know who he is. He did Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Yeah.
He goes, yeah, he did all that. Now, do you think Cosby's legacy will be hurt?
Yeah.
You do, huh? I mean, there was a comedian, Patton Oswalt, he told me, I think the worst part of the Cosby thing was the hypocrisy. And I disagreed.
You disagree with that?
Yeah, I thought it was the raping. That's my feeling. Most rapists are hypocrites. You don't meet many go, I like raping, and I know it's not politically correct, but by God, people go, well, he's not being a hypocrite, and that's the worst part.
No, it's a question from Blake's good friend, Norm. No, Blake, it's fun watching you this year. Wasn't it cool?
Yeah.
Thank you. And I was wondering, like, there's a kind of a curse with Rookie of the Year. Nobody's ever repeated it.
I didn't think about that. Well, I'll try as hard as I can next year, but
All right, man.
I don't know. I don't know. Thank you for that question, though. That's going on top of the goals for next year.
Do you know the Harlem Shake?
Yeah, I've seen it on every single commercial.
You've seen it. Then you'll appreciate this joke. I remember back when the Harlem Shake was just a black fella holding me upside down off a fire escape trying to collect his money.
Can you find out what...
You know, it just occurred to me, Mr. President, you are now handicapped, and you're the President of the United States. You must have an unbelievable parking spot, you know? That's got to be very close to the building, you know?
Reveal this week, the defense lawyer Johnny Cochran once abused his first wife. In his defense, Cochran said, hey, at least I didn't kill her like some people I know.
Norm, thanks for dressing up.
Hey, Sarah, listen, man. Congratulations, that's the 100th time that joke's been done tonight. But I also want to tell you, I have a bet with Daniel Kellison, a rather large figure.
Daniel Kellison, who put this whole thing together way over his head.
He says you
did it.
He says you can explain what the fuck Jash is.
Jash is
pay up, fucker.
Jash is a comedy collective, a United Artists, if you will. Uniting myself, Reggie Watts, Michael Cera, and Tim and Eric. And what do? We do whatever we dream up. We shoot it, and it goes on there. We can fail, we can do well. It's total freedom.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
You got me, Norm.
I mean, I've never heard the word collective.
I know, but
Leon
Daniel
Trotsky
puts buzzwords in my head, and then I just blindly
out
say
of all
them.
those people you mentioned.
I know you're new to this. I'm going to teach you something. One of the first things in hosting an interview show is to listen.
What's that now?
The answer given by the guest. My whole motto, my whole broadcasting career, that's why I don't like a lot of guys on the air now, is that I never learned anything when I was talking.
Can I interrupt you there?
Yeah.
To illustrate the point that their client is running out of money to defend himself, O.J. Simpson's lawyer said this week that if he had to do it over again, after killing his victims, O.J. would now rob them as well. That one you find troubling? We went.
Did I tell you I ate a live fish in real life?
No.
Yeah, I was at a sushi restaurant, and the guy's like Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go, I eat just sashimi, like raw fish.
Mm-hmm.
I don't eat with rice or anything like that.
Yeah.
Am I trying to impress him? So he goes, you eat live fish? I go, yeah. Even though I don't. And he goes,
never think he's going to call you on it.
Yeah, and I go, plus it sounds kind of cool. Mm-hmm. And he goes, I get you live fish. I go, thanks, man. Like I was an inside guy, and then he brought out a fish and hit it and knocked it out and put it on a stick. It was live. And that clears out a sushi bar. A lot of people, the girl I was in was barfing in a bathroom. And the only people interested was the guy, the Japanese sociopath guy. And all the Mexican help, they were all like looking like I'd eat it. And so I had to cut it. And then they leave the fish that's on the skeleton that looks like the one Sylvester found on a garbage thing.
Mm-hmm.
To move. It's moving and like a dead bobblehead, and you had to put water in its mouth to keep it alive so you could watch it die as you ate. It was a nice meal.
Jesus, I'm living such a hell life compared. I mean, you are.
If you guys think it's weird that guy in Cleveland kept 3 women in his basement as sex slaves, wait till you hear what my middle-aged Uncle Gordon kept in his basement. A fucking electric train. At least these were human beings.
At least.
Living the great life, living the dream every day.
Yeah.
Norm, every day.
Did you enjoy that bit we did with driving around?
It was really hysterical.
Yeah, I got a late. They put me in late. I don't think I'd have to take.
Where did you go? Did you take a spin around the station? I couldn't find you.
You drove way too far down the hall.
I got a heavy foot.
There's a real stream of consciousness thing happening here, Norm.
Yeah, it's called conversation. But there's no brake on mine.
Oh, man, I want to buy this dog. You should see this dog. This guy wanted to sell me a dog in the store. It was $600, this dog. Can you believe it? $600 for a dog? Oh, man. I was looking to pay, you know, a buck. I just wanted a bargain dog, a nice discount dog, a cheap, off-the-rack kind of dog, any kind of... Show me to your bin of dogs, my good man, I said to the guy. But this guy says, no, he says, why don't you buy this dog? He says, it's $600, this dog, but he says, this dog is a pit bull. He says, this dog will protect your valuables. You know, and I don't even have anything very valuable, you know. I buy the pit bull, that would be the most valuable thing I have. I'd have to buy something to protect it then, you know. I'd be out shopping for wolverines the next day there. Show me something in a timber wolf if you could.
You know, of course, they say the White House is haunted. Did you know that? And I thought this was kind of sad. I heard last night that President Clinton charged Abraham Lincoln's ghost $10,000 to sleep in his own bed. So that doesn't seem right to me, you know? I mean... But look, the president, you know, has come under a lot of fire for raising money, but you know, he's good at raising money. That's not a bad thing. Every president's done it. It's just that President Clinton is very, very, very good at it. Do you know he has organized in the past year over 100 fundraising dinners and over 200 fundraising midnight snacks? Did you know that? Is he laughing? Is he...
O.J. Simpson's lawyers have decided to skip hearings on DNA evidence and go right to trial. Asked why they did this, the lawyers replied, "We want to get O.J. acquitted as speedily as possible so he can get back to doing what he does best, killing people."
No, I was just thinking, you know, because they have that Viagra thing out.
Yeah.
And the other day, you know, Bob Dole came right out and said...
He was one of the first.
Yeah. And, you know, you don't want to hear about Bob Dole's cock, you know? I mean, President Clinton's cock, Bob Dole's cock, what the hell? But mostly, an old man like that, you don't want him to have a super hard cock. You know what I mean?
Why?
Why? Because an old man, you want him to be got a pipe going, a newspaper, the dog at his feet there.
Well, that in some corners is considered pipe.
Oh. But now they're going to have to create some goddamn pill that makes women aroused at the sight of a fucking 70-year-old dude with a super hard cock. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. This Viagra. It's insane. And you know what it's for? Impotent people. All right, yeah. It's for impotent guys. So get this. I read this. The pill can make your cock hard for 4 hours.
Right.
So now, who has the 4-hour hard cock? The impotent guy. The rest of us are fucked. Me and you got our regular cocks. Meanwhile, fucking Spade is, you know...
Refer to Spade.
Oh, man. I didn't see it.
I didn't see it coming.
Dude, I know you didn't. He brought it all around and then a vicious rip kick into his best friend's gut.
Once there's too much cock talk, I try to just zone out for a minute till it goes back. the other way.
If there's too much cock talk, this guy has fevered nightmares all night. Dreams, I mean, like sweaty, fevered dreams from the cock talk that's been all over his head.
Why bury me twice? He's killing me.
No, he's a good man.
That erased it. All right.
No, he's a good man.
Who cares?
After all that, that's nice.
You know, I'm old enough to remember back to simpler, more innocent times when the worst thing you'd hear about the news was hijacked jetliners flying into buildings.
Oh, now, Gilbert, you're going to get into trouble again.
What I wanted to show you is how easy it is to watch yourself and other live streams on your tablet device.
On the computer.
On the computer.
Yeah.
Go ahead and hit play there.
Okay.
It's
Oh,
right
I
there
see.
in my.
It's so simple.
Do you see your face?
Oh yeah, it's me with a huge fat fucking face.
Yeah, I didn't want to be the one to say it.
Yeah, I've been having a lot of trouble. My doctor, he said he's not a very nice guy. He said, open your mouth and say oink.
Yeah, you need to get better insurance, Norm.
Insurance? He was calling me a fat pig.
Well, I mean, nobody's going to disagree with him.
Oh, chasm.
I'm sorry, Norm. I've got an acid tongue.
You do. You're an acid-tongued Arab.
Well,
one time I was hosting, and there was 3 guys.
I've never hosted. How many times have you hosted?
Just one time. It was a mistake.
Did it not go well?
It was all right.
Did you do update?
No.
You didn't even do update?
It was right after I got fired from update. I thought it'd be funnier back then. But anyways, so there were three guys doing music, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't know music. I just know old music. Like again, Lauren would go, "Who do you like?" And I go, "You like this guy."
Bobby Goldsboro.
Yeah, Bobby Goldsboro. Eddie Cantor, is he around? And Lauren go, "You've got to go," you know. So
who'd they have on? Very hip.
So they
young
had
kids.
hip guys that everyone else knew except me. It was Snoop Dogg. He just changed his name, and he was angry because I kept getting it wrong. It used to be Snoop Doggy Dogg. It was Snoop Dogg and Eminem and Dr. Dre.
That's a pretty heavy lineup.
Yeah,
though.
but to me it was 2 black guys and a white guy. So I go to introduce them.
You're beautiful.
And they're all
just trying to get this into the barn. Don't go black white on.
They were all standing like in
I'm
rap.
out there with Francis Farmer. You're about to go up and take me with you.
They were standing in rap positions, as you know, like against. And I'm about to introduce them, so they're standing in that rap position where it looks like they'll either start singing rap or pull a gun and kill you. So then I go, as a joke, I look at them, because I remember this is kind of a Letterman-y thing to do, but I go, "Fellas, are you ready? Are you ready?" Which forces them to go shake their heads slightly. Even though they're in this crazy dangerous
I'll post up.
I'll post up. So I thought that was funny. But then I learned later they were geniuses, and I should have befriended them rather than...
You're a freaking genius, Norman.
The oddest slogan I've ever heard. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, they say. Of course, it's not true. You can't kill a person and leave. They'll follow you across state lines and bring you back, and you'll face a jury of your peers. So I said, what does that mean? What does it mean? Like, what are they getting at, you know? I started ruminating about it. I whittled. I started whittling.
Oh, you whittle?
Yeah, when I ruminate, I whittle.
Whittle and ruminate.
Yeah, I whittle.
Hand in hand.
And I said, what does that actually mean? What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas? And it came to me in a sudden. What it means is you can have sex with a prostitute in Las Vegas, and she will not tell your wife. They're very discreet in Vegas. They're not like these gossipy small town whores. You know. These blabbermouths down at the beauty parlor with that pale blue thing over their head, whatever that is, go, "You're Hank Johnson's husband?" By God, I had sex in exchange for cash last night with him. Small world.
Yeah, in exchange for cash.
See, this is the thing with celebrity trials, you know, is that it really gets the country all worked up. Because the last celebrity murder, of course, we had was the O.J. Simpson murder. And what happened there is O.J. Simpson was acquitted of murder, you know. And then all the black people thought that O.J. was innocent. And all the white people thought that O.J. was guilty. So what happened was it created a racial divide in the country. I read that in a magazine. It created a... But what that means is, of course, the races were divided, you know? And that's no good, you know? So I was figuring, maybe, what do you think of this? Maybe we let Robert Blake off and call it even. And then...
Well, earlier this week, actor Marlon Brando met with Jewish leaders to apologize for comments he made on Larry King Live. Among them, that, quote, Hollywood is run by Jews. The Jewish leaders accepted the actor's apology and announced that Brando is now free to work again. In a brilliant move during closing arguments, Simpson attorney Johnny Cochran put on the knit cap prosecutors say O.J. wore the night he committed the murders. Although O.J. may have hurt his case when he suddenly blurted out, hey, easy with that. That's my lucky stabbing hat.
This is the greatest roast in comedy history.
John likes the ladies, it's true. He has a one-track mind, and the traffic on it is pretty light. Cloris, if people say you're over the hill, don't believe them. Why, you'll never be over the hill, not in the car you drive.
With the roast of Tom Brady being hot in the news right now, a lot of people are calling this the best comedy roast in a long time. Some other people are calling it the greatest roast of all time, but I don't believe that to be the case because that would mean you'd have to put it above the roast of Bob Saget and the legendary events that unfolded that night. That night, Norm Macdonald took the stage and truly shocked the audience and made for one of the most memorable moments in the world of comedy, and in my opinion, the greatest roast in comedy history. It's not just me who says this either. There are so many comedians that would proceed to talk about what Norm did and just how truly legendary and brilliant it was for many years after the fact. If you're wondering how it was that Norm Macdonald shocked the world with his performance at the roast of Bob Saget, why he took the route that he took with it, and how comedians responded after the fact, then you've come to the right place. I will be breaking down exactly what happened in this video, so let's hop right into it and get down to the nitty-gritty details. To begin with, Comedy Central roasts have been very popular ever since they started back in 2003. The roast format in comedy is a very interesting one because it is an outlet of comedy that requires comedians to write new jokes about people that will only be used that one time, and often the goal is to be as mean as possible while still being funny. This trend has been happening for an extremely long time amongst celebrities. It is evident by the fact that if you look on YouTube, you can find several legendary roasts such as the Dean Martin roasts in 1974, the roast of Richard Pryor in 1977, and the roast of Patrice O'Neal in 2003, and so many more. There is so much gold in the Dean Martin roasts in 1974 that they will definitely get their own video at some point. This may not have been the first time that a celebrity was ever roasted on TV, but it certainly popularized this outlet of entertainment. Early on, people realized that comedians, given their craft being so writing heavy, would often deliver some of the most clever and silver-tongued roasts that had ever been said. This eventually led to Comedy Central starting their own installment of comedy roasts in 2003 with the first episode featuring comedian and asshole Dennis Leary. However, there was a stark difference between old school comedy roasts featuring people like Don Rickles and the new school roasts featuring people like Anthony Jeselnik and Jeff Ross. Nothing against those two comedians, but it would seem today that shock value is the most important thing when it comes to roasts. If you're used to that type of humor, you would know that after several times of being shocked, it gets increasingly more difficult to find yourself getting shocked again, so this type of humor can get old pretty quickly, which is why I myself don't watch a lot of Comedy Central roasts. However, of the Comedy Central roasts I have watched, one of them was the roast of Bob Saget that was set to take place in 2008 and aired on August 16th. The esteemed roast master was actor John Stamos, and the roast would feature a lot of regulars on the Comedy Central roast lineup with a couple new faces. The list of roasters included Susie Essman, Greg Giraldo, Jim Norton, Jeff Garber, Garland, Gilbert Gottfried, John Lovitz, Cloris Leachman, Jeff Ross, and several more. But there were two additional names on the roast roster that would catch everybody off guard: Norm Macdonald and Artie Lang. This was something that a lot of die-hard comedy fans were absolutely stoked for, a dynamic duo of chaos on the roast of Bob Saget. Before 2008, one of Artie Lang's most viral moments was on the Joe Buck live show, where he absolutely roasted Joe to a crisp and basically got the show taken off the air on the first episode. And Norm had always been well known for roasting people when he felt necessary, as he often did when he hosted awards shows or even behind the desk at Weekend Update. One of the most memorable Norm Macdonald moments in history is when he hosted the ESPYs and dealt some absolutely hilarious roasts to some of the players in the audience.
It's hard to believe, huh, that the ESPYs are 6 years old. Although Anthony Mason swears they're 18. He became the first defensive player to win the Heisman Trophy. And congratulations, Charles. That is something that no one can ever take away from you. Unless you kill your wife and a waiter, in which case...
Norm was a silver-tongued devil when he wanted to be, and one thing that most Norm fans know about him so well is the fact that Norm really enjoys doing the opposite of what he's told. The governor of Iowa knows that, and Don Ohlmeyer certainly knows that. Norm Macdonald seemed like the perfect person to do a roast of any celebrity, but there was a problem with this Comedy Central roast. Bob Saget was one of Norm Macdonald's good friends and one of his favorite people on the entire planet. He also vocally expressed how he really doesn't care for organized comedy roasts like these ones.
Well, the real reason was because it was a roast for Bob Saget, right? Who's a friend of mine.
Yeah,
I guess I don't like roasts.
Not to mention, he really didn't know what to say about him to make fun of him. Bob actually talked on a podcast about how Norm came to him and said he didn't know what to roast Bob about. I'll play that here real quickly.
No, he was reading from a joke book. He said, Saget, I'm going to do jokes from the 40s. And I went, I don't know. I said, say once. I don't want to do that. I don't want to make fun of you. You're my friend.
So out of confusion, he would then ask the producers of Comedy Central what he should roast Bob about, or what he should say, and all of them told him the same thing, to be as shocking as possible, and that there were no lines he couldn't cross. So Norm would then realize the most subversive and shocking thing he could possibly do when roasting Bob Saget, and he would then make a plan for himself before the roast happened. Real quick, I like to read your guys' comments every now and then. Quick shout out to I Am The Cheese 5377 who gave me a super thanks recently, and a quick shout out to all my Patreon supporters over here. Then a couple days before the roast took place, it was announced that Artie Lang would not be attending the event because he had entered a rehab center for his drug addiction, or so the Germans would have us believe. The roast would then take place, and while it happened, Norm Macdonald would treat it with the utmost indifference while patiently waiting his turn to go up and roast. There were several moments where people roasted Norm, and he either played dumb or didn't care. I'll show you a little bit of what he did.
Norm Macdonald is here, one of the funniest people ever. Norm's got a giant gambling problem. He's dropped more coin in a casino than Michael J. Fox at a parking meter. It's a fucking roast. Groany, groan, groan.
Norm Macdonald is here. He does an amazing Burt Reynolds impression. And by that, I mean he's not in movies anymore either.
Then when Gilbert Gottfried went up, we got to see Norm put down the newspaper and actually give him his undivided attention, and you would also get to see Gilbert actually make Norm laugh for the first time all night.
Jim Norton is a pervert. He's a necrophiliac. Last night he fucked Norm Macdonald in his career.
You could tell that Norm had a lot of respect for Gilbert Gottfried because of the way he listened to his entire set and appreciated it thoroughly. Norm was also listening during Cloris Leachman's set and not reading the newspaper. This entire time, people are sitting there enjoying the roast and all the mean jokes being said, but one thing keeps crossing the mind of all of the comedians and audience members watching. What the hell is Norm Macdonald gonna say? The guy who wouldn't stop making fun of O.J. Simpson and who seems to love putting people on the spot whenever he feels like it. Then Norm gets called up to go on stage and he proceeds to tell the corniest and most inoffensive jokes you've ever heard in your entire life. Here's a few of them now.
Well, John has a reputation for being a bit of a swinger. Did you know instead of an umbilical cord, John was born with a bungee cord? Greg Coraldo, I'm just joking him. He has the grace of a swan, the wisdom of an owl, and the eye of an eagle. Ladies and gentlemen, this man is for the birds. I love Gilbert. And what I like about Gilbert Godfrey most of all is his neck. Doesn't he have a great neck, folks? Gilbert, your neck reminds me of a typewriter. Underwood. Now, but Bob has a beautiful face, like a flower. Yeah, cauliflower. No offense, but your face looks like a cauliflower. As you can see, he has wavy hair. It's waving goodbye on account he's going bald.
Norm was told to be shocking, so he did exactly that. At a roast where everyone was reading harsh punchlines trying to be as mean as they could be, Norm decided to take jokes from an old-school joke book that his father Percy had given him when he was just a young boy learning about comedy. Each and every joke Norm read was silly and innocuous, and the crowd was barely responding. We don't know for sure how amplified the laugh track was by Comedy Central, but what I can tell you is that even if it is improved for TV, it's still super quiet. It's so damn funny to hear nobody laughing. And then when the camera cuts to the roasters on stage, the actors are totally confused and the comedians are laughing their asses off. Gilbert in particular couldn't stop cracking up, and neither could Greg Giraldo and Bob Saget. Then Norm proceeds to do the complete opposite of roasting Bob Saget by proceeding to talk about how much of an amazing comedian and friend he is. It ends up being the most wholesome moment of the entire night.
In all seriousness, Bob was the first comedian that I ever saw perform live, and I loved him. But one thing that bonds us as comedians is we're bitter and jealous, and Bob honestly has never had an unkind word for anybody, and I love him, and I hope everybody else does, so I just want to say that.
And it's even more touching in retrospect when you consider the fact that Norm Macdonald and Bob Saget are both now taking a dirt nap. Hopefully they're not napping right next to each other, because that would be gayer than Richard Simmons. After Norm walked off stage, the audience members were left wondering what the heck just happened. Everyone else went up with mean jokes, and Norm went up and made a mockery of the roast itself by refusing to have any edge. Afterwards, Jim Norton went up on stage and roasted Norm Macdonald's set and basically called it boring. But then Norm responded to that in a way that is absolutely perfect. I'll show you that here.
Norm Macdonald, God bless you. Watching your set was like watching Henry Fonda pick blueberries.
Why, I don't think there's a person in here that would not love to watch Henry Fonda pick blueberries.
Just an all-around amazing response that even had Jim Norton cracking up. Also during Jeff Ross's set, he made fun of Norm, and Norm gave him a slight jab while he was reading the newspaper. Watch this.
Norm Macdonald's so stoned he thinks he's at a roast for Bob Seger. I love you, Norm. Wow, you never come out, Norm. You're like the J.D. Salinger of jokes. What's the over-under tonight? What's going to happen, Norm?
No, I wanted to read something funny, so I'm reading Marmaduke.
A classic line from our favorite chunk of coal. There was one person that didn't roast Norm Macdonald, though. You guessed it. Frank Stallone. Anyway, after the roast ended, many comedians would talk about it and just how funny it was that Norm did this. Colin Quinn talked about the roast and had nothing but good things to say about Norm. I'll show you that here.
Bro, when there's some roast and Norm goes up and he just bombs on purpose.
Yeah.
And he goes, Gilbert Godfrey, if you see during this as a gentleman, go ahead and enter. I get fairly...
He goes, Cloris Leachman. I say she's over the hill, not in the car I saw her driving.
He said it in the roast?
Yeah.
That is a good one.
The whole crowd's like this. It's so funny.
No, he's bombing and he never cracked.
No,
he never cracked. No, but you got to have balls to do that, right?
Oh.
To bomb on
Just
TV
commit to it.
in front of everybody.
It's committed.
Like he said, he didn't fucking wink.
Yeah, but where do you think you get that from? Being Canadian?
Norm, he's just like that. No, Canadians
but
aren't like that.
To bomb on TV?
Yeah.
I don't know who Colin Quinn was with in this interview, but I don't fully agree with this guy because he says that Norm Macdonald bombed on purpose at the roast of Bob Saget. I think Norm was essentially roasting the roast itself, the concept of roasts, the people doing it, himself, and the audience as well. Just because the audience wasn't receptive to it doesn't necessarily mean he was bombing on purpose. I think they just didn't get it, which is totally fine. Jim Norton would also comment on his roast on the Opie and Anthony radio show and talk about how Norm Macdonald was a very strange and weird dude, and his roast was incredibly odd.
Norm Macdonald's a weird dude.
No kidding. Yeah, he really is.
He was hilarious. Like, he did this like weird thing where he went up and he was just being like he wouldn't curse. He said it was saying like, oh, what the H, and he was being like these innocent, sweet jokes like, Bob, if you walk up to a bathroom and the door says gentlemen, you should ignore that and proceed in anyway. Like that type of stuff.
It's funny to think Jim didn't get it, and he took the angle of Norm being weird for it. And it doesn't shock me either, because he's green with envy and he has a yellow stripe down his back. Norm would then go on to the WTF podcast with Mark Maron and reflect on the roast of Bob Saget. He would talk about how he wasn't even sure about the roast at times and how he felt about it, but that there were a lot of people who thought he was mentally ill for doing this and not getting big laughs. While he may not have gotten the people in the audience to laugh, the real audience back at home got to really enjoy what it was Norm was doing. To take the roast where everyone has a PP measuring contest about who can write the most antagonistic punchline and shocking joke, and instead do corny and innocuous jokes is perfect and absolutely hilarious. For this and so many other reasons, the roast of Bob Saget to me by Norm was my favorite roast of all time. Patrice O'Neal's roast of Charlie Sheen was a close second to this one, but we will save that lovely roast for another video. Anyways, what did you guys think of the roast? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you wonder what Artie Lang would have said if he was on the roast with Norm? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you liked the video, make sure to give me a thumbs up, and if you're new, you can subscribe to the channel. I also have some bonus behind-the-scenes content on my Patreon. But all in all, this was the greatest roast in comedy history.
That's a funny roast, huh? Yeah, you gotta laugh just to escape.
This is the time Norm Macdonald destroyed at the ESPYs.
He became the first defensive player to win the Heisman Trophy. And congratulations, Charles. That is something that no one can ever take away from you. Unless you kill your wife and a waiter, in which case... all bets are off.
If you're a big-time comedy fan, or you've even just dabbled in the comedy content space, then you've certainly been exposed to the late, great Norm Macdonald. If you're a subscriber of this channel, then Norm Macdonald needs absolutely no introduction. But if you're new here, Norm Macdonald is considered by many comedy fans to be one of the greatest comedians of all time, if not the greatest. He's legendary in the world of comedy for his unbreakable integrity and his willingness to be ballsy and take risks, even if it cost him a cozy opportunity. One of the greatest Norm Macdonald moments of all time was when he hosted the ESPYs in 1998 and brought the house down. If you'd like to learn more details about Norm Macdonald hosting the ESPYs, how he got the gig, why it was legendary, and some of the repercussions he faced after the fact, then you've come to the right place. I will be discussing this event in great detail throughout the entire video, so if that sounds interesting to you, let's hop right into it. To begin with, let me start by explaining to the folks at home what the ESPYs are. The ESPY Award, which is short for Excellence in Sports Performance Yearly, is an award that's given out annually for athletes and teams who give extraordinary performances over the last calendar year. If you don't watch a lot of sports, it basically sums up to whichever guy is the best at playing with balls gets a trophy and a speech so that he can thank God, his wife, and the woman he's fucking when his wife isn't around. The ESPYs are broadcasted by ABC, and they always have a host for the event. The host will usually be either a comedian, actor, or sports person. In fact, the first person to host the ESPYs was Dennis Miller in 1993 and 1994, who we know is an avid admirer of everything Norm Macdonald. However, a few years later, Norm Macdonald would be hired to host the ESPYs for its 6th annual ceremony in 1998. It was an incredibly ballsy decision, to say the least, to let Norm Macdonald host the ESPYs. I, for one, think the person responsible for this decision deserves a blowjob from a really hot woman, like Caitlyn Jenner. No, but seriously, this was a pretty unbelievable decision when you really look at the timeline of events. It was 1998, and at this time, Norm Macdonald had built a reputation for being one of the most fearless and unpredictable Weekend Update hosts on Saturday Night Live, a reputation he has since held on to even to this day after his untimely demise in 2021. It's even crazier when you consider this was the same comedian who just 1 year ago got hired for a corporate corporate clean comedy gig in Iowa and then got kicked out of that state for doing material that was anything but savory and clean. Which, if you want to learn more about the time Norm Macdonald got kicked out of Iowa and you're not gay, I made a whole video on all the details surrounding that event you can watch after this one. Anyway, the 6th ESPYs Awards ceremony was on February 9th, 1998, which was just 1 month after Norm Macdonald had been fired from Saturday Night Live for what everyone thought was the O.J. Simpson jokes. The awards ceremony took place at Radio City Music Hall in New York City, which meant that given Norm's popularity on Saturday Night Live for many years, he had a home field advantage with the audience. If I had to guess, this was probably the reason that Norm got the gig, given his popularity amongst the audience and the main demographic of people that would be in attendance for the ESPYs. Anyway, Norm Macdonald would get the gig and would proceed to give one of the most incredible performances of all time. While airing on ESPN, there would be a little prelude to the monologue where Norm was doing an interview while dressed like he was about to go buy a pack of cigarettes. He talks about his favorite part of awards ceremonies.
With an award show, don't you think acceptance speeches are the key to a successful award show? What do you look for in an acceptance speech?
What do I look for? Gloating. Laughing at the people who lost.
Then they would complete the interlude with Norm talking to Evander Holyfield, and the monologue would begin. Most of the time, the hosts would do a regular intro where they didn't make fun of the athletes too much, but Norm had a completely different idea in mind. He started off the monologue with a jaw-dropping joke about why he accepted the invitation to host and the ESPYs themselves.
I'm very excited to be here, and I was asked to host the ESPYs this year. Yeah, hi, that's my name, Espen. When I was asked to host the ESPYs this year, folks, I said yes immediately for one reason and one reason only. This show has interns. I'll be having a little improper relations backstage a little later. The 6th annual ESPY Awards. Hard to believe, huh, that the ESPYs are 6 years old. Although Anthony Mason swears they're 18. Yeah, he'll be having sex with the ESPYs in about 12 years,
What a way to start the sports ceremony. I can't get over the shit-eating grin on his face after these jokes, like a kid who just broke something in his parents' house. It was at this point you could see from the camera that many people in the audience were starting to get uncomfortable. Norm would continue to drill all the athletes in the audience and hit them with some amazing jokes.
Just backstage, a lot of celebrities back there, man. I was talking to Jerry Jones, the Cowboys owner, and he's disappointed, obviously. Yeah. Well, he's a good guy, though, man. He's talking about rebuilding the team, and he told me, he says, we have to get back to what made us a championship team. Strippers and crack. I love the Denver fans, because for one thing, they don't wear food on their heads. That's nice. And they had a wild celebration in Denver after that Super Bowl, man. And now city officials expect an even wilder celebration if the Nuggets win 10 games this year. They say they're going to... say the whole city's going to go nuts. Yeah, the Nuggets are having a bad year this year, man. Matter of fact, they're making a film about the team. They got a pretty catchy title. It's Black Men Can't Jump Either. But Jordan is very serious, though, about leaving. In fact, he's already called the Hall of Fame to make sure that his plaque bears his basketball nickname, Air Jordan, and not his baseball nickname, Senior Crappy. That would just be disrespectful, Well, how about them Winter Olympics? They're finally underway, so we've got a lot of great stuff to look forward to in the next 2 weeks, like hockey and, just hockey, really. I was watching last night, I saw speed skating, and my goodness, could the outfits they wear be any tighter? Holy Lord. There was an East German woman, I swear, you could see the outline of her entire penis. It was...
And while this is taking place, ESPN executives are absolutely losing their shit behind the scenes. A side note I'd like to make is that Norm's Tiger Woods jokes was one of my favorite ones, and I absolutely love the fact that Tiger was such a good sport about the joke and got a good laugh from it as well.
Well, there's all kinds of sports celebrities in the audience tonight. I see Tiger Woods right there. Tiger Woods, how about that, huh? Yeah, he's up for golf. Of course, he's up for Golfer of the Year this ESPYs. And you know who I feel sorry for, folks, is the other two guys nominated for Golfer of the Year. You see these guys getting ready, you know? It's like, hey, honey, have you seen my tuxedo? No, not the good one. The one I wear when I'm going to get my ass kicked. Have you seen that one?
Tiger Woods absolutely deserved to be Golfer of the Year when you think about all the holes he filled. Anyway, the final joke of the night was the one that Norm got in the most trouble for. He saw Charles Woodson in the crowd and proceeded to go right for the head with his closer.
And there's Charles Woodson. How about that? Huh? What a season he had. Great, man. He became the first defensive player to win the Heisman Trophy. And congratulations, Charles. That is something that no one can ever take away from you. Unless you kill your wife and a waiter, in which case, all bets are off. Just a word of advice.
What a way to conclude the awards ceremony. A vicious O.J. Simpson joke in typical Norm Macdonald fashion. The crowd's response was huge, and you could see Ken Griffey Jr. in the audience get visually uncomfortable and shake his head after the fact. Absolutely amazing. It's safe to say that ESPN executives definitely regretted their choice to have Norm Macdonald host by the end of the monologue. They should have known that Norm would do what he always did best, which was the opposite of what everyone expected. It's hilarious to think that when Norm wanted to roast people, he could write some of the most silver-tongued and vicious jokes you've ever heard, but then when he was asked to be shocking on a comedy roast of Bob Saget by the executives of Comedy Central, he would refuse to curse and tell the most innocuous dad jokes you've ever heard. Furthermore, despite the audience loving the ESPYs monologue that Norm gave, ESPN would never invite Norm back to host the ESPYs again, even though they saw an incredible ratings boost. It would appear the general population didn't want to see the host kissing a bunch of athletes' asses and would rather see them get verbally decapitated like that one football player did to his wife, who, I'm not even going to dignify him by saying his name, but I think you know who I'm talking about. Norm would then be asked about this many times after it happened, given the infamy this ESPYs had at ESPN. Many years later, Dan Patrick would be hosting his own show, and he would have Norm Macdonald on the phone, and Dan would discuss a lot of nervous energy and discomfort that was in the air while Norm was on stage doing the monologue. We also get a little bit of insight from Norm himself as to how ESPN executives reacted to the set once he was off stage.
Yeah, I'm here, man.
You do a great job of always making me uncomfortable. When you hosted the ESPYs that one time.
Oh, you were there. I remember that.
Oh my God. You had jokes, but they weren't directed at me. I was uncomfortable, and they weren't even directed at me.
Yeah, I have this thing where I don't even know when I do bad, but that happens to me a lot. I come off, I go, hey, that went pretty well, right? They're like, well, everyone left. I'm like, oh.
It's so funny to hear Norm being so coy about how well he did. He knew the audience loved it, but I think deep down he knew the executives hated it more, but the best part was he likely didn't give a shit regardless. For a while, this was merely a speculation that the executives lost their minds over Norm. Granted, it was very likely speculation, but American sports commentator Rich Eisen actually came out and confirmed what we all knew was true in a tweet back in July 2023. Another hilarious side note was Norm's interaction with Ken Griffey Jr. after the fact. If you watch Norm's ESPYs monologue in its entirety, you will see several times when the camera pans over to Ken Griffey Jr. and he looks very, very uncomfortable. Then Norm shared a brief conversation they had after the event had ended.
Well, Ken Griffey was really mad for some reason. I don't really know why. And he was like, yeah, that was really funny, man, really funny, like real sarcastic. And then I said, hey, man, listen, I just want to tell you one thing. I go, there's never going to be a guy, never going to be a player like your dad. That guy was the best. There'll never be anybody close to that guy.
What did he say?
He just looked at him. He didn't know what to do because What are you going to do? Go, my dad? You know? I'm way better than him. You know? But you knew that's what was in his head.
Absolutely fucking hilarious. Norm knew that a lot of these athletes took themselves way too seriously, so he took these hilarious scandals and points of discomfort in their lives and shoved it right in their face and made for one of the most infamous moments to ever air on ESPN. If you guys like content about Norm Macdonald, I have an entire playlist where you can binge my coverage of Norm and some of the amazing stories that involve him in the wide world of comedy. But anyway, what did you guys think? Did you love Norm's monologue at the ESPYs? Did you think he went too far? Are there other celebrities or athletes you wish he would have made fun of? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to give me a thumbs up to show me your appreciation, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. I also have a Patreon where you can see some bonus content, but all in all, this was the time Norm Macdonald destroyed at the ESPYs.
Here we see the president and the first bitch.
A moth goes into a podiatrist's office.
A moth goes into a podiatrist's office. All right.
You are correct.
Comedian Norm Macdonald has died. Macdonald was well known for his sarcastic, deadpan style as the anchor of Weekend Update.
Norm really was brilliant. Not just his stand-up, but an edgy, underappreciated Weekend Update.
I don't know of anybody that could make me laugh like that.
I said, Doc, she's choking.
I love Norm Macdonald.
There's not another guy like this guy. And working with him was the greatest thing that ever happened to me.
Because the light was on.
When you think of a comedian, what comes to your mind? Perhaps you enjoy a comedian who tells a good story and takes you along for the ride at their shows. Maybe you're really into one-liner comedians who have mastered the meticulous craft of joke writing, or maybe your style of comedy is just a lady talking about her vagina. The answer may vary depending on what you, the viewer, finds funny, but to me, a comedian is someone who makes keen observations based on their own experiences about the absurdities of everyday life, and then tells you about it in a humorous way that you didn't expect. They also have the ability to deliver a joke or anecdote with unwavering confidence like it's the funniest thing you've ever heard. Even if it's not the funniest thing you've ever heard, that belief is what gives a comedian the courage to practice their craft for months, years, and even decades. To me, there's not a single person on the planet that embodies the definition of comedian better than Norm Macdonald did. Timing, joke writing, stage presence, relatability, any aspect of stand-up comedy you could possibly mention, Norm has mastered through years and years of hard work. Beyond his exemplary comedic talent, there was something else about Norm that made him so special, and that was his desire to always follow his heart no matter what it was he did. Whether it was getting fired from his dream job for standing in solidarity with his friend, or getting kicked out of a state by the governor for doing material he was explicitly instructed not to do. Norm always did what he wanted to do, even if it meant burning a bridge forever, and we as diehard fans get to enjoy his comedic legacy even 3 years after his death. Norm is still held in very high regard by his fans, and also some of the best comedians working today. And it is because of that I felt he deserved recognition for his long body of work that will never be forgotten. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the complete timeline of Norm Macdonald's legacy. I hope you learned something new. On October 17th, 1959, Norman Jean Macdonald was born in Quebec City, Canada. His family lived in a very rural area on a farm that Norm's father Percy had inherited from his father. Norm's family consisted of his father Percy Macdonald, his mother Fern Macdonald, and his older brother Neil Macdonald. For much of Norm's childhood, his family was very poor, and this would not change until his father became one of the real heroes working as an English teacher. A lot of people spoke French in Quebec City, but Norm's father insisted they speak English instead because of the rivalry between the English and French. We very rarely got to hear Norm be sincere, but in this interview from the WTF podcast with Mark Maron, we got to hear Norm speak candidly about his childhood very briefly.
So when you grew up, what'd your folks do?
Well, my dad, we were like real poor and stuff, but later my dad became like a teacher, so we had a little bit of money. But
yeah.
We lived like on a rural...
With animals?
Farm. It was a dead farm.
Yeah.
It was my father's farm, but that by this point it had become dead. It was interesting because everyone was old where I lived except me and my brothers. So I was with old men all the time.
Yeah.
But I like them a lot.
Yeah.
I really like them.
Do you still like old people?
Love them.
So Norm talks about how he had a humble upbringing and that his family was always a part of the working class, even when his father got a job as a teacher. What I thought was particularly noteworthy is how highly Norm speaks of his elders and older people, given how frequently he was around older people in his hometown.
I love super old people because it's like it helps you with perspective, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like there's a thing, like I love country songs and shit, but there's this myth about the old guy that never forgot about the girl and he's drinking and that's not true. Like when you meet old people, you know what I mean? You go, hey, you were heartbroken? They go, what? You know, they don't care.
I don't even remember her.
Yeah, it's all like comedy to them. They go, yeah, there was a lady.
I this morning. Everything's good.
Exactly, right. They have incredible perspective. And then I was thinking, if you can only get that perspective instantly, just pretend you're a fucking old man and forget it instantly.
A lot of younger people have an attitude of irreverence or disdain towards elderly people, but Norm felt the exact opposite and really treasured the wisdom and perspective he received from his elders. What you'll notice about Norm as we continue to go through some of his old clips is that a lot of the phrases he often said are very old school and something you would hear an old relative say, such as, I'll give it a whirl, or what a gyp that turned out to be. Given Norm's upbringing, it's abundantly clear that his admiration of older people helped mold parts of his sense of humor and instantly made him stand out when he later gained attention as a stand-up comedian. More on that later though. Furthermore, when Norm started school as a youngster, it became apparent very quickly just how well-read and intelligent he was at a very early age. He was also very reserved and kept to himself a lot of the time based on his awkward and shy personality. Even though to a lot of us, Norm is hilarious, as a kid, he was never really the class clown.
First of all, I couldn't afford the shoes.
Secondly, it took a while for Norm to mature into his unique personality he always had. When Norm became a teenager, he would attend Quebec High School for several years until his parents would relocate to Ottawa, Ontario. After Norm's family moved, he would transfer to Gloucester High School, which was also the home of hockey players Peter Campbell and Aaron Ward. As mentioned earlier, Norm was a very smart kid and also a great student. Norm had modestly said before that he dropped out of high school, when in reality this was all a bunch of gossip and trickery because Norm actually graduated from high school at the age of 14 years old, and then just 2 years later attended Carleton University to study mathematics and philosophy at the age of 16. Despite this young chunk of coal showing a lot of academic promise early on, he ultimately decided this path was not for him and dropped out of Carleton University. What a gyp that turned out to be. However, this would not be the final time that Norm pursued a higher education. In fact, he later attended the Algonquin College of Applied Arts and Technology, where he studied television broadcasting and journalism just like his brother Neil. While Norm said in his own words that he did not have a formal education, that doesn't mean he wasn't an incredibly intelligent kid who was wise beyond his years. I think it's perfectly appropriate to consider Norm a genius. Even though Norm had an exceptional aptitude, he worked a normal job as a furniture mover in his early 20s. Norm had a fascination with comedy and humor at a very early age as well. In fact, during his final performance on Late Show with David Letterman, he shares a very personal experience he had when he was very young of when he saw a talk show live in Toronto, Canada, where David Letterman was the stand-up comedian performing live. It's unclear when this was exactly, but it's clear that this, among many other things, had a huge impact on Norm and really made him fall in love with stand-up comedy. Then in 1985, at 26 years old, Norm Macdonald would try stand-up comedy for the very first time at Yuck Yuck's Comedy Club. According to the club owner Howard Wagman, Norm's first set was really good compared to other first-time comics. But Norm did not feel this way at all. In fact, Norm felt so embarrassed that he actually sprinted out of the club and said he would never do stand-up again. But luckily for the world of comedy, Howard talked to Norm and convinced him he had a talent for the craft and that he should keep doing comedy at his club. After Norm continued to do spots in Ottawa and saw his stage presence and confidence continue to grow, he found himself regularly appearing at the amateur nights at Yuck Yuck's Comedy Club. Norm developed a very unique style of comedy with his keen observations and his incredibly dry and sarcastic delivery, and it made him a local favorite at Yuck Yuck's among a wide strata of Canadian comedy fans. Norm was also an incredibly quick learner with all of the stage time he was getting, and it seemed like he found his comedic voice very quickly. Within just 6 months, Norm was granted the opportunity to perform at Just for Laughs Comedy Festival in 1986, which was located in Montreal. This was a highly prestigious honor in the comedy world at the time because for some comedians it took them anywhere from 5 to 10 years, maybe more, before they got accepted into Just for Laughs, but Norm was doing it within his first year of stand-up comedy, which is absolutely unreal. There's an audio recording of Norm's performance at Just for Laughs in 1986 that's around 8 minutes long.
But this is a big day for me. This is a big day. I quit smoking today, and I'm pretty happy about that. Thank you. I try. It was hard for me because I smoke ever since I was a kid, you know. I was behind my garage sneaking a cigarette back there, and my dad caught me. He hauled me in. I thought I was in for the strapping of my life. What he did is he pulled out this big cigar. It must have been half the size of my arm. Made me smoke it all the way through, right to the end. That's when I started smoking cigars real heavy. I went to my doctor, and he showed me a picture of a smoker's lung. And it was really gross and disgusting. Then he showed me a picture of this healthy guy's lung. And it was really gross and disgusting too, you know.
If you want to listen to the full tape, it's available on Happy the Dog's YouTube channel. This is the earliest known recording of Norm Macdonald's stand-up comedy that we have access to. Some of Norm's comedic influences are Bob Newhart, David Letterman, Don Rickles, Rodney Dangerfield, and many more. According to Norm, though, when he started stand-up comedy, initially, his favorite comedian to watch was Gilbert Gottfried, even though Gilbert was a bit of a skinflint and a little tight with the dollar. Even at a young age with less than a decade of experience, people picked up on how talented Norm was very quickly. The Orleans magazine wrote an article about Norm Macdonald where they called him a young prodigy and were already considering him a comedian's comedian. Norm did so well at Just for Laughs that he had an article written about him by the Montreal Gazette that detailed Norm and his comedic talent. However, it wasn't all peaches and cream because in this article it was also detailed that between 1986 and 1987, Norm had been diagnosed with stomach cancer and it took an entire year off his career for him to fully recuperate. As we progress further into this video, you'll notice a common theme in a lot of Norm's comedy is death and his fear of it and being terminally ill. It makes a lot of sense when you realize he waged a courageous battle against bowel cancer in his late 20s. Getting cancer has to be one of the scariest things you could face as a young man. Paul Newman told me, "You never get over it." No, but seriously, Norm actually tried talking about his experiences with cancer after dealing with it, but he said that it never worked with audiences and that they thought he was making it all up. So he would sideline the topic and not talk about it for a while. Fellow comedian and Canadian Harlan Williams actually details how him and Norm started comedy together in Canada, and how he remembers when Norm stopped comedy for a bit after his cancer diagnosis.
Me and Norm were really good friends, and then we had a bit of a we had a falling out and kind of didn't talk. You know, never any animosity, always love in my heart for Norm. We were really close, really good friends. He went through cancer in the 80s. Most people don't know this, but he had stomach cancer in the 80s. So I was with him all the time, going through that with him and helping him and being a friend with him. And then he moved down, he healed up, moved to LA, and then we were hanging out, being buddies for 2 or 3 years, and then we kind of went our separate ways.
Even though Norm and Harlan ended up parting ways when they both lived in Los Angeles, they had a history of being the two most successful comedians in Canada very early on in their careers. And Harlan was always there for Norm during the dark moments of him going through cancer. Harlan has a really funny Norm Macdonald story, but I'm going to save that for the comedians telling stories about Norm section, so please stay tuned for that. In the meantime, in the late 80s, Norm would develop a lot as a comedian and start to perform in front of professional comedians at Yuck Yucks on the weekends. Some of the early footage of Norm performing comedy is just phenomenal when you consider he's so young and still finding his comedic voice.
Sometimes you gotta go in, you gotta try to close on those little rooms, and then people can see you because the door doesn't fit you right, you know? The door go like that on you, little rodeo doors they got in there. And then people see like your naked shoulders and naked shins and everything like that. People be shopping you, looking right in the eye, go, "You're naked over there, huh?" Yeah, a little bit. You ever know some mirrors are better than other mirrors? You think all mirrors be the same, you know? But sometimes you be in a bathroom, you get ready for the night, you go, "Hey, look at me in the mirror there. Oh, I'm looking good. Okay, I'm ready to go out now, looking good like I do." And then you walk by the mirror in the bedroom, you look in there, you go, "Hey, I look like shit here." What the hell happened between the bathroom and here? This mirror shot here, right?
Even 4 years into comedy, Norm just had it. He was already commanding the stage and delivering jokes with the utmost confidence like a seasoned professional. A comedy club owner wrote something about Norm I felt was very compelling. He said, quote, "In the late 80s, Toronto Yuck Yucks owner Mark Breslin set up a showcase for me for 15 of the best Canadian comics. But once Norm hit the stage, everyone else was just playing for second place. I'd never seen anyone like him before, and I've never seen anyone like him since. He has always made me proud to be in this profession, as I've always had the utmost respect for him. One of the greatest comedians of my or any generation, and I'm truly honored to have known him," end quote. Words like these are truly remarkable and only capture a sliver of just how good Norm was and the impact he had on the craft of stand-up comedy. Eventually, as Norm continued to grow and develop as a comedian, he received more splendid opportunities such as performing as a contestant on Star Search, and more notably, he made his late-night debut on Late Night with David Letterman. When Norm did Star Search, he went against Australian comedian Vince Sereni and Liberian comedian Bushman. Despite giving it his all, Norm would come up short and lose to Bushman on Star Search because he simply wasn't as funny as this silver-tongued Liberian, or so the Germans would have us believe. The show would not be nearly as pivotal, though, as Norm's network television debut on Late Night with David Letterman on May 9th, 1990. Norm would bring the heat and give an exemplary television debut that Letterman absolutely loved.
But I like game shows. That's my favorite thing. You know, big prizes and everything. You ever see The Dating Game? You ever see that show? That's a weird show there. The prize on that show, another contestant. Talk about cheap. And they always do the same thing on that show. They get a beautiful girl, match her up with 3 giant dorks. Then they make the girl ask those questions, you know, laced with sexual innuendo. You know, girl go, "Bachelor number 2, if I were a popsicle..." "Well, if you're a popsicle, huh? Well, first of all, I guess I'd take your wrapper off. And then I'd press you against the counter till you're broken too."
Letterman instantly took a liking to Norm and went on the record saying, quote, "If we could have, we would have had Norm on every week," end quote. So Norm has really started to make his mark on the world of entertainment. He had Letterman in his corner for support and had looked death right in the eye with no fear at all during his stomach cancer diagnosis. And it was clear at this point that people were about to see the rise of somebody who was truly special. However, tragedy would strike Norm and his family when on October 29th, 1990, Percy Macdonald would wage a courageous battle against heart disease that ended in a draw. It was horrific for Norm to go through one of the most devastating losses of his life, just 5 months after one of the most exciting moments of his life, appearing on Letterman for the very first time. But it was the unfortunate hand our chunk of coal had been dealt. After mourning his father's death, though, Norm continued to make leaps and bounds in the world of comedy by making several more appearances on Letterman in the early 90s. And Norm had gained so much popularity for his unique comedic ability that HBO offered him a comedy special on their network that he would record in 1991. In this HBO special, we would see the finished product of a lot of jokes we had seen Norm do previously in older sets, such as the 1989 tape from Yuck Yucks Comedy Club, and also his 1990 TV taping on Evening at the Improv. For example, Norm's famous cliff diving bit that was talked about by the Montreal Gazette.
I saw this one cliff diving. There's a weird sport. Hey, a guy diving off a cliff there, and they're trying to pass it off as a sport. You know, it's like attempted suicide pretty well, eh? It's tough to know who's better in cliff diving either. Like you see a guy diving off a cliff, they go, "Oh man, a guy diving off a cliff." And then another guy dives, "Oh, there's another guy diving off a cliff." If you survive it all, hey, you're a great cliff diver there. There's only 2 classifications in cliff diving there. There's a grand champion and then stuff on a rock.
Another great example of a joke that evolved and signified Norm's comedic development was the bit about buying a pit bull.
Big pit bull, $600, you know? And I was looking to pay, you know, maybe a buck, something like that, you know, maybe. But this guy goes, "No," he says, "why don't you buy this pit bull?" He says, "This guy's expensive dog," but he goes, "This will protect your valuables, this dog." You know, I don't have anything very valuable, you know, I don't own a lot of stuff there, you know. I buy a pit bull, that would be the most valuable thing I own, right? When I was young, no such thing as a pit bull. When I was a kid, it was the meanest dog around, the Doberman dog. You don't see Dobermans around anymore. You ever notice that? Pit bulls now, they got all the work and everything. Once in a while, you see them on a park bench with a frisbee there, you know. "I used to be somebody. I'm a Doberman. Got a buck?"
The way this bit organically trails all the way to the Doberman impression is excellent, and it's remarkable to think Norm was doing this with just 6 years of comedy experience under his belt. If you watch Norm's HBO half hour from 1991, you'll pick up very quickly how Norm loves to talk like an old-timey person. It's almost like Norm was preparing to be an old man his entire life based on what we heard earlier about how he grew up around a lot of elderly people in Quebec City and how he really had a deep appreciation for them. After this special was taped, Norm would continue to hone the craft of stand-up comedy and work comedy clubs until he became a writer for the one and only season of The Dennis Miller Show in 1992. While Norm's stint on the show was short, given the show only being on the air for one season, this was a point where Norm would gain another fan for life, being Dennis Miller. Dennis has been there for some of the most iconic Norm Macdonald moments of all time, and he always saw something unique about Norm and thought he was a comedic genius.
Yeah, I was just thinking, you know, because they have that Viagra thing out. Yeah. And the other day, you know, Bob Dole came right out and said he was one of the first. Yeah. And, you know, you don't want to hear about Bob Dole's cock, you know? I mean, President Clinton's cock, Bob Dole's cock, what the hell? But mostly, an old man like that, an old man, you don't want him to have a super hard cock. You know what I mean? Why? Why? Because an old man, you want him to be, got a pipe going, a newspaper, the dog at his feet there. Well, that, in some corners, is considered pipe. But now they're going to have to create some goddamn pill that makes women aroused at the sight of a fucking 70-year-old dude with a super hard cock. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. This Viagra. It's insane. And you know what it's for? Impotent people. All right, it's for impotent guys. So get this. I read this. The pill can make your cock hard for 4 hours. Right. So now, who has the 4-hour hard cock? The impotent guy. The rest of us are fucked. Me and you got our regular cocks. Meanwhile, fucking Spade is, you know...
Dennis Miller, similar to Conan O'Brien and David Letterman, knew how to press Norm and draw more funniness out of him when he was being interviewed. Anyway, shortly after, Norm would receive another job that would end up being his first big writing gig in show business for a sitcom on Roseanne Barr's show Roseanne. He actually talked about this with Larry King and shared some of the experiences he had on the show with Roseanne.
You wrote for Roseanne, huh?
Yeah, Roseanne was my first job, yeah. She was fantastic.
That was a great sitcom.
Every week, the writers would go write a sketch, very traditional sitcom sketch, and she didn't want to do that. So she'd go, get rid of all these
Yeah, go ahead.
Get rid of all these jokes. Why are all these people telling jokes? That's not how people act. The next week, it would repeat, the same exact dynamic would start again. They'd never go, Roseanne's right. We got to change everything.
So from this moment on, Norm loved Roseanne, and they would work together again later on. Norm wrote for the 1992 and 1993 season of Roseanne, but he would leave after 1993 because Norm received the opportunity of a lifetime for any comedian in the 90s. For Norm, this next chapter in his life would certainly become one of the highlights of his career, given the sheer gravity that surrounded this comedy show at the time.
So sad that you're not as smart as you thought you were in the first place.
After 8 years of working his ass off, Norm would join the cast of Saturday Night Live in 1993, where he went on to do legendary impressions of Larry King, Burt Reynolds, David Letterman, Bob Dole, and many more. Now, before we get into what Norm did on the show, this was always a lifelong dream of his, and it must have been absolutely surreal to finally be on SNL. If you didn't know, Norm Macdonald used to talk to Harlan Williams about how bad he wanted to be on Saturday Night Live, and they even did sketches together in an old church basement.
Norm, when we were up there, he used to tell me, he goes, I want to be on Saturday Night Live one day. And me and him, and I found an old church and rented the basement, and we would go in there. Me and Norm would go down in this room by ourselves and do sketches together. We even made signs. We did this one sketch where we were sports broadcasters calling the color to baseball games. And so I painted a big mural of the Major League Baseball thing. And we'd sit at this thing and be, okay, over to you, Norm. And we'd do these sketches, but to nobody.
So SNL wasn't just another job for Norm, it was something he literally dreamed about being on for many years when he started comedy, and Harlan knew this very well. In his first year on the show, he had some very memorable performances that are still talked about to this day. A few of my favorite sketches Norm did while on SNL were the multiple personality sketch with Roseanne, and also the zoo sketch he did with Chris Farley. Speaking of which, while on the show, Norm would also befriend the bad boys of SNL, which consisted of Adam Sandler, Chris Rock, Tim Meadows, Chris Farley, David Spade, and Rob Schneider. This would lead to several more opportunities for Norm down the road with movies and comedy shows. Norm often said he wasn't great at acting, but when it came to doing impressions, he was actually really good.
Anyways, Howard, the thing is, okay, about Pulp Fiction, okay, is I had to figure out who was the best guy for it, okay? So, I had to look into my big misshapen head, all right? To finally figure it out, okay?
One of my favorite impressions he did was when he played Burt Reynolds on Celebrity Jeopardy, and also when he did David Letterman. Norm always believed that in order to do a decent impression of someone, you have to like the person. In fact, he says this on an interview.
But if you do an impression of someone, you have to like that person, because you're playing the person and people like themselves.
So it's obvious why he made such a good impression of all the people I've listed, because Norm really admired all of these people in some way. All of this is well and good, but one season after Norm joined the cast of Saturday Night Live, he would end up getting the job that is arguably his most famous role on television, which was the anchor on the Weekend Update news routine. This was Norm Macdonald's bread and butter on SNL, and a lot of old fans of the show have called Norm the funniest Weekend Update host of all time. Reason being was because Norm would read some of the funniest jokes we'd ever seen on TV, and some of the ballsiest jokes as well. Nobody was safe when Norm was behind the desk at Weekend Update, whether it be the Clintons.
Here we see the president and the first bitch.
Or even just your friendly neighborhood crack whore.
However, last year's worst job, assistant crack whore, has been replaced by a new worst job, crack whore trainee.
Classic crack whores. You gotta love them. Norm's biggest target would end up being alleged murderer and dead man O.J. Simpson, though, but more on that later. There was just something so uniquely Norm about the jokes on Weekend Update he told, and the utter indifference he had towards the audience's reaction. Conan has talked about this before, and I think he sums up perfectly what made Norm's time behind the desk so amazing to comedy fans.
Some of his time on Weekend Update.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you watch it now, you realize Norm just didn't care if it got a laugh.
No. And he didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't care. And he had a joke. I think Downey wrote the joke. It was during the O.J. trial.
In a brilliant move during closing arguments, Simpson attorney Johnny Cochran put on the knit cap prosecutors say O.J. wore the night he committed the murders. Although O.J. may have hurt his case when he suddenly blurted out, hey, easy with that. That's my lucky stabbing hat.
Who else could do that?
Right.
And he doesn't. And if it got nothing, he would stare. And tell you your problem. I thought that was one of the best. Dark but fantastic, and also no one could do it but him.
Norm on Weekend Update was truly a spectacle to see, and I envy anyone that was alive to see these seasons of Saturday Night Live. However, Norm also dealt with his fair share of controversy while hosting Weekend Update. For example, one of the most controversial moments Norm had on the show was on February 24th, 1996, when Norm Macdonald read a joke about the John Lauder sentencing.
In Falls City, Nebraska, John Lauder has been sentenced to death for attempting to kill 3 people in what prosecutors called a plot to silence a cross-dressing female who had accused him of rape. Now, this might strike some viewers as harsh, but I believe everyone involved in this story should die.
Now, to most people, this was a pretty funny joke, but it was not seen that way by everyone. Apparently, the trans community came after NBC and criticized them relentlessly because of the joke from Norm, specifically the Transsexual Menace, which is a transgender rights activist organization. They demanded an apology from NBC and promised to boycott the show if the conditions were not met. Upon reviewing the show, NBC agreed the line was inappropriate and that they should not have aired it, and said it would ensure that similar incidents would not occur again in the future. This did not stop stop Norm from continuing at his crusade of doing whatever jokes he felt like doing, though. Another controversy was the jokes Norm told about Michael Jackson. When it was announced that Michael Jackson and Lisa Marie Presley were divorcing, Norm wasted no time before going right for the throat with some brutal jokes.
Well, there may be trouble in paradise. Lisa Marie Presley confirmed this week that she and Michael Jackson live in separate residences 50 miles away from each other. Lisa Marie was quoted as saying, "I guess being married to a homosexual pedophile wasn't such a great idea after all."
This caught a lot of flack from people about the Michael Jackson allegations, but nothing happened to Norm. The next controversy would end up being the catalyst that led to Norm being fired from the show. It's a lot of details, so hold on tight for this one. A lot of people thought that Norm Macdonald was fired from Weekend Update for his excessive O.J. Simpson jokes, but this is not the full story. If you're even a casual fan of Norm Macdonald, you're well aware of how many jokes about O.J. Simpson he made on Weekend Update in light of the murder trial that took place from January 24th, 1995, all the way up until October 5th. If you're not familiar with any of the jokes Norm did about OJ, there's a whole cookie jar full of them on YouTube you can find for free.
In his book, O.J. Simpson says that he would have taken a bullet or stood in front of a train for Nicole. Man, I'm going to tell you, that is some bad luck when the one guy who would have died for you kills you. That's probably... You don't get worse luck than that. It was revealed today that O.J. Simpson told police that Nicole Brown Simpson used to beat him up. He also claimed that she and Ron Goldman killed him. Well, let's get to O.J. O.J. Simpson's lawyers say they don't want the families of Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman in the courtroom during the trial. They're afraid the presence of the family members will just remind O.J. of how much more killing he still has to do.
These were just a couple, but there are way more you can find on your own. At the time, the head writer on Saturday Night Live was a guy named Jim Downey, who was good friends with Norm and the rest of the Sandler gang. If you don't know Jim, he played this character in the movie Billy Madison. However, Jim and Norm wrote a bunch of these jokes, and it started to anger one of the executive producers at NBC named Don Ohlmeyer. The reason for this was that Don was friends with O.J. Simpson. Then when the trial took place and it came back that O.J. Simpson was found not guilty of murdering that woman and a waiter that he absolutely murdered, Don told Norm and Jim that the trial is over, so it's time to just let the OJ jokes go and move on. In response to this order from Ohlmeyer, the day that the verdict was announced, Norm started Weekend Update with this joke.
Well, it is finally official. Murder is legal in the state of California.
It didn't stop here either. Norm proceeded to read several more vicious jokes about OJ and completely disobeying what he was told to do by Don Ohlmeyer. Another thing you'll notice about Norm as we proceed through this timeline is that he absolutely hated being told what he could and could not do. If you told him to do something, he would most certainly do the opposite. This was something that would lose Norm potential opportunities while also granting him a legendary status amongst fellow comedians and his own fans. What happened next though was the producers at Saturday Night Live approached Jim Downey and told him that they were going to fire him very soon. Then after this, the same producers called Norm into their office and told him that they would be firing Jim Downey, and they basically asked him if he was okay with this decision, to which Norm said he was not. The producers insisted that Jim was dead weight and that he was not helping the show at all. And Norm put his foot down and said he would not do the show without Jim, and that if they fired Jim, they would have to fire Norm as well. Jim Downey actually sat down with Conan and told him this exact story very recently.
The network went to Norm and said, we want to get rid of Jim Downey, and we just want you to know, you're cool with that, right? He said, no, if you fire him, I quit. And they go, that's crazy. I mean, he's not helping you, And he said, well, no, I'm not doing it without him. And he never told me that. And I didn't hear that for years. I heard it from some network executives. And and part of everything else, if that had been me, that would have been, you bet Norm would have heard.
So Norm got fired from Weekend Update halfway through the 1997 season while standing in solidarity with his friend Jim. What's crazy is the public would have never known about this if the producers didn't tell Jim Downey, and Norm refused to make a moral stand about it publicly because he didn't want to big brother Jim. This is why everyone for so long thought Norm was fired for the OJ jokes. Then Norm went on Letterman directly after this happened and played coy, making it seem like it was all his fault.
No, you didn't get fired.
Yeah, they fired me.
No, they didn't fire you.
No, I'm serious. I talked to a guy that said I'm fired. they said that this guy, Don Ohlmeyer, turns out to be the president.
Yeah, now I know Don Ohlmeyer, and
Yeah.
just between you and me, he's an idiot.
Oh. So he goes, oh yeah, I'm firing you there from the show. And then I said, oh, that's not good. Then I said, why is that now? And he goes, oh, you're not funny.
Yeah.
And then I said, holy Lord, that's even worse news,
This truly shows the character Norm Macdonald had to stand for his friend Jim and not use the firing as a way to make himself look good. Even though Norm seemed to not care when he told jokes on Weekend Update, knowing what we know with him telling Harlan Williams about SNL being his dream, this must have been an incredibly difficult decision for him to make. It didn't matter though, because Norm always had golden integrity. After the 1998 season concluded, Norm was canned from Saturday Night Live as a whole, and the reason cited for his firing was lackluster ratings and because Norm was no longer seen as funny by producers at NBC. However, Norm did not have any trouble landing on his feet after his departure from the show. Very shortly after his firing from SNL, one of the most iconic and badass moments of Norm's career would take place. On February 9th, 1998, Norm Macdonald was selected to host the 6th annual ESPY Awards just 1 month after being fired for what everyone believed was the O.J. Simpson jokes. If you don't know what the ESPYs are, it basically sums up to whichever guy is the best at playing with balls gets a trophy and a speech to thank God, his wife, and the woman he's fucking when his wife isn't around. The awards ceremony took place at Radio City Music Hall in New York City, which meant that given Norm's popularity on SNL, he had a home field advantage with the audience. Then he proceeded to give a vicious monologue where he roasts the shit out of all of these athletes.
But man, it's great to be here at the 6th annual ESPY Awards. Hard to believe, huh, that the ESPYs are 6 years old. Although Anthony Mason swears they're 18. Yeah, he'll be having sex with the ESPYs in about 12 years. So I was watching last night, I saw speed skating, and my goodness, could the outfits they wear be any tighter? Holy Lord. There was an East German woman, I swear, you could see the outline of her entire penis. It was... Well, there's all kinds of sports celebrities in the audience tonight. I see Tiger Woods right there. Tiger Woods, how about that, huh? Yeah, he's up for golf. Of course, he's up for Golfer of the Year this ESPYs. And you know who I feel sorry for, folks, is the other two guys nominated for Golfer of the Year. You see these guys getting ready, it's like, hey, honey, have you seen my tuxedo? No, not the good one. The one I wear when I'm going to get my ass kicked. Have you seen that one?
Norm was funny throughout the entire performance, but where he stole the show was on his very last joke about Charles Woodson.
And there's Charles Woodson. How about that? And what a season he had. Great, man. He became the first defensive player to win the Heisman Trophy. And congratulations, Charles. That is something that no one can ever take away from you. Unless you kill your wife and a waiter, in which case... all bets are off. Just a word of advice.
Absolutely amazing. The timing of this was spectacular, and everyone in the audience knew Norm was right. The balls to get this gig and then do something this dangerous is astonishing. It goes to show how special of a comedian Norm Macdonald was. After this, Norm would march forward in the world of show business. We had seen Norm as a supporting role in Adam Sandler's 1995 movie Billy Madison, and also The People vs. Larry Flynt in 1996. And just 1 year after leaving SNL in 1998, Norm would star in his own comedy movie directed by Bob Saget titled Dirty Work. This movie would be a hit for comedy fans and a national tragedy for movie critics.
Either way, it was a national tragedy.
Dirty Work would prove that even against his own words, Norm at least had serviceable acting to be funny on screen while also being the same chunk of coal that people had come to love all those years on SNL. This movie also featured one of Norm's best friends and professional fat guy, Artie Lang. This movie was an awesome moment for Norm and Artie to share the screen together, but this would also end up being a very special moment for the two of them because it would be the last movie that comedy legend Chris Farley would star in before his death. While the movie was well received by Norm's growing fan base, there was another controversy with Don Ohlmeyer because apparently he had blocked NBC from advertising Dirty Work out of retaliation for what he interpreted as disparaging conduct towards him on Late Night with David Letterman and The Howard Stern Show. If you watch these two interviews for yourself, you'd know this is complete and utter horseshit and that Don Ohlmeyer was simply holding a grudge against Norm for no real reason. Norm responded and called out Don for being the douchebag that he was, and even claimed that Ohlmeyer was the reason that some of the press he planned on doing for the movie was probably cancelled, even though these accusations were denied by the shows in question. Even though Norm had to deal with all of this during the release of Dirty Work, it didn't slow his reign because then a year after Dirty Work was released, on March 24th, 1999, Norm would receive his very own sitcom titled The Norm Show, where he played Norm. In this show, Norm played Norm Henderson, who was a former NHL hockey player who was banned from the league for gambling and tax evasion. Norm became a bit of a method actor and gambled for many years to make sure he gave the best possible performance in this role. In The Norm Show, to avoid prison time and exonerate himself of the crimes, Norm must be a social worker for 5 years as community service. You know, gambling and tax evasion is pretty bad, but to me, I felt like the worst part about Norm was the hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy!
Nah, I'm just kidding. Anyway, the sitcom was good for Norm fans because we got to see him every week in a show where the style of comedy revolved around Norm's unique sense of humor. After Norm found success on his sitcom, he was contacted by NBC and asked if he'd like to return to Saturday Night Live to host the show. Norm was delighted by the offer and accepted it immediately, but after all the crap he put up with from NBC after his firing, he was going to make a memorable return. On October 23rd, 1999, Norm Macdonald returned to Saturday Night Live and gave a scorching monologue where he completely trashed the show. If you haven't heard the monologue for yourself, it's everything you would expect from Norm and more.
When the people here asked me to do the show, I gotta say, I felt kind of weird, I don't know if you remember this, but I used to actually be on this show, So you see, they fired me because they said that I wasn't funny, Now, so I wondered, I go, hey, wait a second here. Hey! I go, how did I go in a year and a half from being not funny enough to be even allowed in the building to being so funny that I'm now hosting the show? Then it occurred to me, I haven't gotten funnier. The show has gotten really bad. So yeah, I'm funny compared to, well, you'll see later. But
with everything you've seen from Norm at this point, this was probably not surprising at all to you. Norm sticking it to the producers of NBC while also calling the show terrible is the coldest possible way he could have returned. Then when the writers boo him, he just soldiers on and makes the audience laugh while the producers have to sit there and watch as they get butchered. Norm had originally planned on leaving after this monologue, but he realized it probably would have been a much bigger issue for him if he would have done this, so he just left it at the brazen monologue and finished the show. Yet again, another golden reason why Norm is a comedy legend with unbreakable integrity and authenticity. After that whole charade, Norm returned to the cozy and lavish lifestyle of acting on the sitcom Norm, where he played Norm for several more years. The show originally aired on Wednesday nights at 9:30 p.m. after the Drew Carey Show on ABC, and for adults aged 18 to 49, the show was a massive success in its first season. When they moved the show to a different time slot at 8:30 p.m. for the second season, this was the first time that ratings fluctuated negatively, which then led ABC to move it back to the original time slot it had in the first season. Then they decided to move the show to Friday, also known as the Friday Death slot, and this caused ratings to become a massive issue for the show and eventually led to the show's cancellation in May 2001. Probably the biggest tragedy to ever take place in the year 2001. ABC literally killed the Norm Show. They must have been thinking like Albert Fish.
This guy's a real jerk.
Before the show ended though, Norm had an incredibly funny moment on The View back in 2000 when he was promoting his show. When he went on The View, he was being his goofy self, and the ladies asked him about the presidential election and George Bush. Then Norm makes a comment that nobody saw coming and certainly got him in hot water with the ladies of The View.
You like George Bush, don't you?
I love George Bush, man. He's a good man, decent, none of this. Yeah, he's not lie or crook murder or anything like that. So it'd be good to get the. See, I think we should get the homicide out of the White House and get like a fresh start, because we don't want any more murderers.
I think we should just go on to the next question.
Oh.
Who's the murderers? Yeah.
Oh, Clinton, he murdered a guy.
Yeah, you know, we're not allowed to, you're not allowed to put out no accusations without
That's a little
Charlotte.
too far.
That's the way it does work.
Let's just go on to the next question.
Yeah.
This is not my week. What can I tell you?
Oh, it's not mine either, and I'm being very nice, okay? Be a good boy. Now, Norm.
Do you never hear that?
No. Listen, we don't need to talk
want to get
about
into
this.
this, and I don't want to hear it, and this is not the place to make those accusations, and you're supposed to be funny. Let's get on to the next question. So get with it.
There you go.
This is a live show.
Not for nothing, Norm, but you have been properly chastised by Barbara, so I'm now going to ask the next question.
I thought it was a matter of record.
Shut up. Shut up. Look, let me do this, okay?
I'll tell you what's a matter of record. You will not be invited back if you don't shut up. All right, now.
Classic Norm. He calls Bill Clinton a murderer several times, and then when the ladies get mad at him, the phone he has goes off and completely kills their train of thought. Amazing. I'm just happy we were able to hear Norm talking over those yammering bitches. While we are in the Saturday Night Live era of Norm Macdonald, there's a few more stories about him that I feel are worth talking about. 1997 would be a very eventful year for Norm because on April 10th, 1997, Norm Macdonald was invited to perform at the White House Correspondents' Dinner in front of Bill and Hillary Clinton, and many more of the most powerful people in America. He went up behind the podium and delivered a nearly 20-minute slugfest of hilarious, gut-wrenching jokes to what has to be one of the weirdest audiences you could ever perform for. Several jokes received very off-putting responses, while others received loud, roaring laughter. Hillary Clinton looked like she had seen a ghost. Meanwhile, her husband Bill was laughing like he wanted Norm to continue telling jokes forever.
And here I am, I look out, I see President Bill Clinton, I see Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, media mogul Rupert Murdoch, broadcast legend Larry King, pornographer Larry Flint, Dick Morris. The list is starting to drop off a little, folks, but still, you get the idea. It's daunting. And of course, it was very inspiring to see President Clinton up here on crutches making a speech. I thought that was just amazing, it's been difficult for the president. He can't jog now, and he needs help getting around, and he still occasionally suffers great pain, On the upside, you got your medical marijuana, so that's, You must inhale, sir. It's the only way you're going to get better. But look, the president, has come under a lot of fire for raising money, but he's good at raising money. That's not a bad thing. Every president's done it. It's just that President Clinton is very, very, very good at it. Do you know he has organized in the past year over 100 fundraising dinners and over 200 fundraising midnight snacks? Did you know that? Is he laughing? Is he?
The comments on this video are people just admiring Norm for having the courage to tell these jokes in front of literal demons from hell, and to not flinch when they tighten up over a joke they felt was too far. Norm understood how powerful these people were and what they could do to him if they felt like it, but luckily he showed just how funny he was, and the lizard people spared his life. Another hilarious story about Norm Macdonald was the time he got kicked out of Iowa for his performance at a corporate clean comedy show. If you're unfamiliar with this story about Norm, then you're in for a treat. While Norm was on Weekend Update, he still found time to tour on the road doing stand-up, and at this time he was doing an SNL comedy tour with Jim Breuer and Daryl Hammond. The three were scheduled to perform in Iowa City, Iowa on June 22nd, 1997, with Norm headlining the show. This comedy show was organized by the Transamerica Corporation, who wanted the show in a golf tournament to raise money for the Iowa Athletic Hall of Fame. The comedy show was billed as Family Night, and there were just under 2,000 people in the audience, composed of college students, old people, and children. Jim Breuer's recount of the story is absolutely hysterical.
We get to the gig and is packed. And they go, now listen, there's kids here and there's students and alum and the dean and all these people here. So
that's the worst.
they're like, yeah, clean. I get it. No worries. I go, we're in Sunny Lake. He goes, that's why we got you guys. Daryl goes up first, does his 20 minutes, does impressions, does his comedy. Hilarious. I go up, do my 20, feel great, crush it. Norm goes up. I'm not even exaggerating. The first thing he says, he goes up, he goes, like, I'm preparing. I'm like, this is going to launch my career. Are you kidding me? This is going to be huge. I'm going to be all. He goes, fucking, where the fuck are we? First person to even curse. Right? I went, oh, shit, he cursed. And he goes, so if you're gay, would you rather be the ass guy or the dick guy? This is what he starts off with. So I go, Daryl, you gotta come see this.
What an absolute madman. So Norm just watches Daryl and Jim go up and destroy, but because the organizers of the event told him to be clean, Norm went up with the filthiest possible material and immediately walked 80% of the audience. I know some of you may not be able to laugh at this and might even find Norm's actions here disgusting, but luckily for me, I don't fucking care and I think it's hilarious. I'm not arguing morality, by the way. I'm just a person with a sick sense of humor who finds this funny, and I think plenty of you out there think this way too. Nah, I'm kidding. For real though, this infamous set by Norm led to the governor basically blacklisting him from the entire state, and there were many articles written about this situation. I originally thought Norm did this just because he was doing the opposite of what he was told, but a lot of people who watched my other video on this also raised the point that Norm might have done this just to get out of doing the golf tournament he was supposed to do with the governor, which is honestly even funnier. The best part was that Norm loved every second of it and saw no shame in being kicked out of the state, and I can prove it. According to 98.1 Cock, one time the writers for SNL went into Norm's office in November 1997, and Norm only had two things posted on his bulletin board. One was a letter from Senator Bob Dole, who Norm often impersonated, and the other was one from the University of Iowa informing Norm they had rescinded his invitation to play at the golf tournament. Just amazing. Another subversive Norm Macdonald moment for the book. Another fun thing Norm did in the year 2000 that is often glossed over was the time he hosted the 27th American Music Awards. What was amazing about this awards ceremony was that Norm did the exact same thing he did to athletes at the ESPYs, but the only difference was the musicians were much better sports about Norm poking fun at them. Not to mention, some of these jokes are freaking hysterical.
You know, before I did the show, I never realized how much work it took to put on a production like this. Check it out. They spent 2 months building all these incredible sets. They had to coordinate 14 live music acts, and most impressive of all, they had to find a seat filler for Jennifer Lopez. She got a... Now, maybe you guys are right. Maybe she doesn't have a gigantic ass. I stand corrected. Well... And Barry Manilow released an album entitled Manilow Sings Sinatra. And I'll tell you, it is a great CD, or as I like to call it, it is a great coaster. I like to throw my drinks on that. It's not a good CD at all. And our Shadazy, an interesting thing about the name Shadazy. Do you realize that the name Shadazy comes from the Native American word for my sisters? It's kind of like that other Native American band Chumbawamba, which means thanks for that one song. Ladies and gentlemen, Shadazy.
Now, I know Norm's appearance on The View, the American Music Awards, and the Iowa debacle weren't in order, but I felt they deserved coverage given their proximity to this chapter of Norm's timeline. Anyway, this was Norm Macdonald's Saturday Night Live era. I titled this section the show business era because in this next portion of the timeline, Norm would do a multitude of different projects in addition to stand-up comedy, including television sketch shows, fake reality shows, and acting in multiple movies. Near the end of the Norm show, Norm had started to sink his fangs into voice acting roles as well. A few projects he had worked on was Eddie Murphy's Dr. Dolittle in 1998, where he voiced Lucky, and he would later return to these roles in the sequels in 2001 and 2006 as well. Even even when talking completely regularly, Norm just had one of those voices that people love to listen to, so he would find several more of these roles. In 2000, Norm would voice Death on Family Guy for one really funny episode, but the role was later recast to Adam Carolla because Norm needed to focus on the Norm Show at the time. Also, in 2000, Norm would do a lead acting role in the movie Screwed with Dave Chappelle. This movie would have several legendary moments that comedy fans would be able to laugh at forever, but the movie was not well received by critics and did not perform very well at the box office. However, Norm got something a lot more valuable than money. He was able to bring laughter and joy to Dave Chappelle at a time when Dave felt inconsolable because of his father's death. Dave has talked about this before in Norm's posthumously released special.
When my dad died, I had to do a movie with Norm, and I tried everything to get out of that movie because I was inconsolable. And working with him was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. It was like he was the right guy at the right time. And it was, wistful and amusing. And Norm is, you never knew he was setting something up or not. We were just hanging out, and all of a sudden...
And also in his newest special where he talks about the time that Norm introduced him to Jim Carrey and pays him due respect for being a comedy legend. It must be absolutely amazing to be so funny that Dave Chappelle commends you the way he has Norm Macdonald and also Shane Gillis for his Trump impression. So it speaks volumes as to just how funny and special Norm was that Chappelle has co-signed him on multiple occasions. Furthermore, in 2003, Norm did another sitcom on Fox called A Minute with Stan Hooper where he was the main character, but it would be canceled after only 6 episodes. It must have been the curse of the Doors. Just kidding. But then in 2005, Norm would start to work with Comedy Central on a sketch show titled Back to Norm. The pilot of the show parodied the self-deletion of Bud Dwyer, but because of lackluster ratings and low viewership, the show would never develop into a series. You can watch the pilot for yourself on YouTube because personally, I loved it, and it really sucks that it never became a proper sketch show. Another voice acting role that Norm would do, and one of the first things I remember from him was The Fairly Odd Parents in 2005, where he voiced Norm the Genie. I watched this show a lot as a kid, and the episodes with Norm were always the funniest because he was always misdirecting Timmy, kinda like the audience whenever he does comedy. Classic Norm Macdonald. Then in 2006, Norm would release a sketch comedy album through Comedy Central titled Ridiculous. I've listened to this album a few times, and I didn't really enjoy it that much, and a lot of Norm fans have had a similar experience. In fact, a lot of them find most of the sketches incredibly forgettable, besides a select few. My favorite part was the hidden track where it's just Norm doing stand-up comedy. It would seem that Comedy Central talked Norm into this because Norm has said on numerous occasions how stand-up is his bread and butter, and that he always preferred to stay in his lane of what he does best. So even though this comedy sketch album wasn't a slam dunk, Norm would avenge himself with his later work on Comedy Central that we will see very soon. Then in 2007, Norm Macdonald would make cameos in the show My Name is Earl, where he basically plays his classic Burt Reynolds character as the character Chubby's son, and in 2008, Norm would appear on the celebrity panel of 2 episodes of the show Match Game. Another fun cameo Norm had was when he did voice acting in an AT&T commercial where he played a gingerbread boy, 2007 to 2008 Christmas commercials. Norm's voice was in high demand, unlike Adam Egget, whose hands were just in high demand under the Queensboro Bridge. Norm also did some voice acting for the Canadian company Bell Mobility in their commercials from 2006 all the way up until 2008. Then later in 2008, Norm would once again catch the eyes of the comedy world with his appearance on the Roast of Bob Saget. At this time, there was a regular cast of roasters that were often on the Comedy Central roasts, but for this one, they had added Norm Macdonald and Artie Lang. A lot of comedy fans were stoked for this because Artie and Norm were a dynamic duo of chaos, and the last time people saw Norm really roast people was on the ESPYs back in 1998, where he scorched every athlete inside the Radio City Music Hall. However, the difference between that roast and this one was that Bob Saget was one of Norm's best friends, and he directed Norm's movie Dirty Work, so Norm really didn't know what to say, and then when he approached the producers of Comedy Central about it, they told Norm to be as shocking as possible and to go right for the head. Luckily for Norm, he knew the most shocking thing he could have done that night and made it happen. When the roast started, everyone went up and told these shocking jokes about Bob and others, and Norm was reading the newspaper for all of them except Gilbert Gottfried's performance. Then Norm went up after all the filth and shock and does this.
Well, John has a reputation for being a bit of a swinger. Did you know instead of an umbilical cord, John was born with a bungee cord? Greg Coraldo, I'm just joking him. He has the grace of a swan, the wisdom of an owl, and the eye of an eagle. Ladies and gentlemen, this man is for the birds. I love Gilbert. And what I like about Gilbert Godfrey most of all
is his neck. Doesn't he have a great neck, folks? No, but Bob has a beautiful face, like a flower. Yeah, cauliflower. No offense, but your face looks like a cauliflower. As you can see, he has wavy hair. It's waving goodbye on account he's going bald.
Everyone wanted Norm to be shocking, so he went up and told the most innocuous jokes you could possibly think of, and the audience was completely thrown off by it. But the comedians who understood what Norm was doing were howling with laughter. Then Norm went on to talk about the roast and why he did what he did.
I just want to know why you did it.
Well, the real reason, it was because it was a roast for Bob Saget,
right?
Who's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And I guess I don't like roasts.
Yeah.
But I mean, I shouldn't say that. I guess I admire. I don't really admire people.
It's a certain style.
It's a certain style. I've come to accept things.
Yeah.
But Saget said, "Can you come and roast me?" And Saget's like a really nice guy. And I said, "I don't know, man." He goes, "Come on." I don't know why he kept pushing it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it was the night before, and so this guy, Sandy Gallen, who is produces these roasts and stuff.
Yeah.
Or Joel Gallen.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know his name. I only did one, and that was all I could take.
Yeah, it's tough. And so I said, I don't know how to do this stuff. He goes, just be shocking. And so luckily when he said shocking, I thought, oh, well, if I do the opposite, it's, like I've heard people go, I got it. I go, well, what the is to get?
Yeah.
Like it's a grade 3 arithmetic.
Yeah,
it's not as simple. It's not a...
So Norm was ultimately just doing the opposite of what he was told yet again. It ended up being super memorable because of Norm's irreverence towards the roasts, and Norm has even said that he doesn't like the roast format and thinks they can be quite barbaric at times. Moving on, in 2009, Norm pitched a fake reality show to Fox about himself called the Norm Macdonald Reality Show. It was initially accepted but then canceled halfway through the filming of the first season. So once again, our old chunk of coal does not have the best luck with his sketch television shows. However, Norm would also return to Saturday Night Live the same year to make a guest appearance as his beloved character Turd Ferguson. To conclude this era of the timeline, we will talk about the splendid year Norm Macdonald had in 2011. Norm would release his first hour-long comedy special on March 26, 2011, titled Me Doing Stand-Up. This special would touch on everything you would expect to hear from Norm, including O.J. Simpson, gay pride, alcoholism, the news, and so much more. Norm would even do a hilarious bit on death and cancer that seemed to resemble the cancer he faced in his early adulthood. He actually has a pretty disturbing joke where he's describing how painful bowel cancer is and comparing that to alcoholism.
It's an interesting disease he has.
Obviously the bit is in reference to someone else who has cancer, but knowing what we know now, if we use Occam's razor, we can probably deduce he was describing his own experience suffering from cancer when he was younger. Anyway, I don't want to spoil the bits for you if you haven't seen the special yet, but I will say this is my favorite comedy special of all time, and Norm received a lot of praise from his fans and fellow comedians for this special. Also, a month before this special aired on TV, Norm had actually been a commentator for the 7th season of High Stakes Poker, which is right up his alley because Norm is known amongst fellow comedians as a big-time gambler. Some people call a gambling addiction a very serious disease, but it's the only disease where you can win a lot of money. Anyway, in April 2011, Norm would star in the sports show with Norm Macdonald on Comedy Central. This was an amazing opportunity for Norm to flex all of his comedy muscles while talking about the wide world of sports. Some of the funniest moments from the show are just one-liners he saved for the end of a section he titled Garbage Time, but there are also notable sketches that featured athletes like Blake Griffin and Manny Pacquiao, along with some awesome monologue jokes. One of my favorite sketches is when he's worried about betting on Manny.
Manny, I got some Manny. What are you doing? Eating. Don't eat. There's no time for eating. Listen, this is what I'm most concerned about. His first name is Sugar. Now, I don't know if you're a student of boxing, but guys whose first names are Sugar, they do pretty well. Really? Yes, Manny, really. So anyways, I'm worried about this guy, and I'll tell you why. He's bigger than you, and he's blacker. And that's what I go on with my boxing. I always pick the bigger, blacker guy.
That one never gets old, and I will always reference this joke when I watch combat sports. All in all, 2011 was a big year for Norm Macdonald, and after this, he would start to make regular appearances on Conan's Tonight Show and other programs, and eventually he would start the world's greatest comedy podcast. This was the show business era. I titled this section this way because in the 2000s we would see some of the greatest late-night TV appearances of all time from Norm Macdonald. Before this, I want to talk about one of my favorite late-night moments ever. The iconic appearance that comes to mind is from the 90s on May 15th, 1997, when Norm was a guest along with Andy Richter and Courtney Thorne-Smith. Norm was always on fire, but this appearance stood out because he was going back and forth with Conan, showing off his wit. And Conan continued to egg him on until Norm hit one of the greatest moments in late-night history.
Why weren't you watching our show, pal?
Because I wasn't on it that night.
All right, no, stay. It's a Zeppelin. All right.
Are you talking about Melrose Place? No, because
You're the biggest ass I ever met. I love you for it. But what's the movie going to be called? Really?
I know what it's going to be called.
Yeah, what's that?
If it's got Carrot Top in it, you know what a good name for it would be?
What's that, Norm?
Box Office Poison.
She's in it.
What about my career?
Courtney Thorne-Smith, the girl sitting to your left, is in the movie.
I'm going to go see it for Courtney.
There's this movie coming out.
Yes.
Title undetermined at this point.
Chairman of the board.
Oh, all right. Do something with that, you freak.
I bet the board is spelled B-O-R-E-D.
This is a masterclass on just how sly and naturally quick-witted Norm was. Conan just kept pushing Norm until that dirty dog delivered the finishing blow. Even though Norm played the dumb guy in every room he was in, he was always well equipped with a great line. Another amazing late-night spot Norm did was when he went on The Late Show with David Letterman and told a story about the time he hung out with Bob Uecker. This is truly one of my favorite stories Norm has ever told. You guys are gonna love this.
Well, Bob Uecker is one of my best friends. He's a great man. Bob is a very, very funny man, and I often go in the booth with him, you know.
Oh, sure.
So one time we were there, and John Fogerty was in the audience. Bob Uecker is a very interesting guy. He thinks of everybody as the same. He doesn't think of people as stars or anything like that. He's a very down-to-earth guy. So he was talking to me, and he says, "Hey, man, you know that guy?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "That's John Fogerty, rock and roll singer." So I go, "Yeah, I know who it is." He goes, "Yeah, man." He goes, "But I played in a golf tournament with him." He goes, "You probably think of him as some that likes to bite the heads off of chickens, but this guy can."
That's exactly how I think of him.
This guy can get it out of the sand trap like nobody's business. So he goes, "He's got a hell of a set of pipes on him." He goes, "Come the seventh inning stretch, I'll have him up here. He'll sing for you." So I said, no, Bob, don't do that. Like, don't have him come up and sing for me, please, you know. He goes, "What's matter, man? Don't you even know who he is?" He got all mad. So I go, "Yes, Bob, I know who he is. He did Creedence Clearwater Revival."
Yeah.
He goes, "Yeah, he did all that."
Amazing again. Norm just really nails the impression and highlights what it was about Bob Uecker that was so funny. Starting in 2009, Norm would become a very frequent guest on The Tonight Show during Conan's incredibly brief stint hosting the show. Even after Conan left NBC, Norm would continue to be a regular guest on Conan's TBS Late Night Show, and there we got arguably two of the greatest late night segments of all time. When picking favorite late night TV appearances from Norm Macdonald, it's so difficult because he has so many golden ones. My two favorites are when he calls his wife a battle axe on Conan, and then of course the legendary moth joke. The battle axe one is amazing because we got to see Norm use some really old-timey phrases, and Conan at one point doesn't even know what's going on anymore and busts into a Johnny Carson impression that makes Norm laugh his ass off. I don't want to ruin the clip for you, so I'd recommend checking it out for yourself. And finally, the moth joke was a surreal moment for late night comedy. Norm does a segment on Conan, and then when they go to commercial, Conan says he needs another segment from Norm even after he's used all his his jokes. So Norm takes a simple one-liner and turns it into a fucking Leo Tolstoy novel. And then when he delivers the punchline and ties it all together, it really seems like Norm just broke all the rules of comedy while still making it super funny. It's a miraculous moment to see. All of these appearances would happen in the 2010s and make Conan's show that much better. Then in 2013, Norm took a break from making late night TV appearances to host a show on the Video Podcast Network with some fucking douchebag who works under the Queensboro Bridge named Adam Egert. He's an odd-looking duck. Besides denying the Holocaust, Adam Egert acts as Norm's not-so-trustworthy sidekick and punching bag in this podcast. Additionally, there are also episodes on Netflix titled Norm Macdonald Has a Show. However, a lot of fans of Norm claim these episodes simply do not raise a candle to the episodes that used to be found on YouTube. The show would also frequent guests who would also take opportunities given to shit on Adam Egert's big stupid face. The first episode went live on March 26, 2013, with the guest being Super Dave Osborne. This episode was full of memorable moments. One of my favorite moments is when Adam asks Super Dave where he gets his ideas from.
Norm told me to come up with some questions for you, and I've just been dying to know, where do you get your ideas from? Where do you get your ideas from? Norm.
Yeah, you know
asked that. I've been watching you for years, and I've always been really curious. Where do you get your ideas from? I mean, I always wanted to know where he got his ideas from, but I think we've,
Never been asked that before.
Where do you get your ideas from?
I don't know where I get I don't know.
Don't ask that again. That was the dumbest goddamn question I've ever heard.
You just want to know where you got it?
Yeah, well, I gotta tell you where I got it, at Ralph's. That's where I got it.
This is a recurring bit from the Norm Macdonald live episodes, and it's hilarious every single time. This is one of those questions a lot of creative people get asked, and the answer is pretty much their brain. So Norm really belittles this question by feeding it to Adam Egert for every guest, and tortures them in a hilarious way. Most comedy podcasts rank anywhere from shit to fucking shit, but this one was unique for several reasons. One of the special parts was when they read jokes from little blue cards at the end of every episode.
We all know the Swiss are officially neutral. Unofficially, however, they're filthy sons of bitches.
This one says, remember the old days when tweeting meant stabbing a hooker? Some gold-plated chains would make a nice retirement gift for a very, very good slave. Well, this was written...
Are you serious?
This was written years ago.
Did you just write that?
I didn't write it.
Did you just say that?
No, I read it, yes.
You read that? Oh my God almighty, I'm not part of this.
No, it was written
No,
before.
I'm not part of this. No, you can't read that.
Norm would write probably all of these jokes and then lie to every guest about who it was that wrote them. Anytime a joke was too far or off color, he would blame Adam Egert for it. These made for some amazing moments in these episodes, and another thing that Norm did was the ad reads for Dollar Shave Club and the Man Grate that were so intentionally bad and funny that it became a running joke in the Norm fan base.
What about the Man Grate?
Is that like a genital cleanser?
No! No, my God! Cast iron grilling grates.
Iron. You don't pronounce it iron.
That's what everybody tells me.
It's the iron horse. Like the word IRON is iron. No, iron.
Cast iron. They're revolutionizing the way people grill. What, Adam Egert? It's true. You haven't heard of the revolution? You can put chicken on this or steak. That's not that unique. Chicken, steak has never tasted so good.
These were hysterical, and then when they lost the sponsorship, it became even more legendary. In the next few years, we had a couple absolute gems take place involving our favorite chunk of coal. One that comes to mind was the time Norm Macdonald hosted the YouTube Awards in 2014 alongside YouTuber Kasim G and comedian Jenny Slate, where he made this shitty situation so uncomfortable, cringy, and most importantly, hilarious. Anytime Jenny and Kasim were interviewing someone and asking them boring questions, Norm would just completely derail the situation on the spot. Not to mention, all the hosts were told to dress up nicely, so Norm shows up wearing sweatpants and a hoodie to the biggest awards show in YouTube history. Amazing. There's so many golden moments from this big live YouTube show.
The wonderful Norm Macdonald.
Yes, and Jenny, all the stars are here.
Do you want a microphone, Norm?
Yes.
Is that my tree?
What a disaster.
Jenny, all the stars are here.
It's true.
Beardy Man, Claude Racine, Dax Flame, Betty Fine,
You got it.
and Raffi Fine. All the stars
You really keep up with all that
are
stuff.
here tonight. Oh, yes. Harley Morenstein is here.
We're joined by the talented trio called the Lonely Island.
Yeah,
Who
you know
will be
what I
on the
call
big.
them?
What do you call them?
I call them Sandberg and the other couple of fellas.
Who should I roast this week?
What about Cassim?
Yeah,
It would be an honor if you could just do me.
He's an Arab, if that helps.
I only roast celebrities, Cassim, so you're off the hook. Thank you. What I wanted to show you is how easy it is to watch yourself and other live streams on your tablet device.
On the computer.
On the computer.
Yeah.
Go ahead and hit play there.
Okay,
It's
oh,
right
I
there
see.
in my.
It's so simple.
Do you see your face?
Oh yeah, it's me with a huge fat fucking face.
Yeah, I didn't want to be the one to say it.
Yeah, I've been having a lot of trouble. My doctor, he said he's not a very nice guy. He said, open your mouth and say oink.
Yeah, you need to get better insurance, Norm.
Insurance? He was calling me a fat pig.
Well, I mean, nobody's going to disagree with him.
Oh, Cassim.
I'm sorry, Norm. I've got an acid tongue.
You do. You're an acid-tongued Arab. He says you can explain what the fuck Jash is.
Josh is.
Pay up, fucker.
Josh is a comedy collective, a United Artists, if you will. Uniting myself, Reggie Watts, Michael Cera, and Tim and Eric. And what do? We do whatever we dream up. We shoot it, and it goes on there. We can fail, we can do well. It's total freedom.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
You got me, Norm.
I mean, I've never heard the word collective.
I know, but
Leon
Daniel
Trotsky.
puts buzz.
This clip was like watching LeBron James play basketball in a D League, honestly, because Norm is just leaps and bounds ahead of everyone here comedically. But luckily, Cassim and Jenny seem to be pretty good sports about it, so cheers to all of them as well. Norm would also act in a TV show with his friend Mike Tyson for the Mike Tyson Mystery Show, where he played the pigeon that would occasionally show up and make fun of everybody. It's so funny to think that Norm has all these side roles where he just voices some silly character and makes a big joke out of the show.
Maybe before we take on the next mystery, we solve the mystery of figuring out how to turn me back into a human being. I mean, I have an actual interest in solving that.
You deserve to be turned into a pigeon by your wife because you're disgusting.
Ex-wife, and you don't know anything about relationships, you little homeschooled weirdo.
Who is my mother, and why did she leave me on Mike Tyson's doorstep when I was a baby?
Probably because she didn't want you. There, mystery solved. Oh, I love chess.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's because it's a lie. Also, I love hanging out with you guys. Black guy, gay guy, and a Chinese girl get into a cab. It's like the start of a joke.
Truly one of the goofiest and funniest roles Norm has ever played, but I loved it because he and Mike Tyson were apparently also really good friends, which is proved further by Mike Tyson's appearance on Norm Macdonald Live later on. Then in early 2015, Norm did some more voice acting in the Canadian TV series Sunnyside, where he plays a talking manhole, another super goofy role for our old chunk of coal. Then later in 2015, Norm would do the last stand-up set on Late Show with Letterman and walk off with amazingly kind closing remarks towards Dave and everything that their friendship meant to him. Norm would cry at the end of his set because of the gravity of the moment. Looking back now, it's clear he probably knew he was very sick and was uncertain about how much time he had left.
So anyways, I'd just like to say, I know that Mr. Letterman is not for the mawkish. He has no truck for the sentimental, but if something is true, it is not sentimental, and I say in truth, I love you.
Oh my God. Very funny, Norm. And thank you. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Norm Macdonald, ladies and gentlemen.
This made the moments even more surreal. Also in 2015, Norm would be a judge on the NBC Late Show Last Comic Standing, where he was notoriously harsh to a lot of the younger comics. In fact, there's even some stories about comedians saying how ruthless Norm was, and the other judges even agreed that Norm was the hardest judge.
And Norm was like borderline a monster to people. Like, he would say things that would kill me, that I would be like on the floor dying laughing. Like, I would have to take time. One of my favorites was he told this one girl, He told this one girl, he said, he just like, and she did fine. Like the other two judges really liked her, and this is what would happen was like the other two judges would like the person, the crowd liked the person, and then Norm would just be like, I think you suck, and it would be like everyone's like, I can't believe you're saying this, and I can't believe you're so against the other two judges. But so this girl, he says, she's done fine. The other judges like her. Norm says, I thought that was horrible. I think you're one of the worst people I've seen in this whole competition. And I'm like dying laughing. And then he goes, I think that you are incapable of writing a joke. And she goes, oh, well, I'll work on that. She's trying to be nice. She's like, okay, thank you. I'll work on that. And he goes, no, don't work on it. I said you are incapable. And that was the most like crushing.
Anthony Jeselnik said Norm was ruthless, and coming from him, that's a crazy way to be described. Then he would also briefly be Colonel Sanders in KFC commercials until February 2016 when he was replaced by Jim Gaffigan. Then on September 20th, 2016, Norm would release his book titled Based on a True Story, Memoir, with all sorts of goofy stories and fables inside. I've read this book twice, and if you're a fan of Norm, I'd highly recommend it. Another cool thing Norm did in 2016 was go back to his home country in Canada and host the 4th Canadian Screen Awards, which is tantamount to the Oscar awards ceremony in the United States. Now, Norm had a really funny monologue and decided not to torpedo the event like he has many other things he's been invited to host, in my eyes, because this is his home country of Canada and he actually deeply respects all of his Canadian peers. However, even though Norm wasn't an agent of chaos in this awards ceremony, that didn't stop him from making some hysterical monologue jokes throughout his entire time on screen.
Dashing men in black ties, sophisticated women in elegant gowns, and tonight, all of you are going to hear the word shits about 100 times. Never has there been such an assembly of great Canadian talent in a single location that did not have to be zambonied first. You know, we were worried people would record the show and they'd just fast forward to the good parts, as is the want these days. So we have put a plan in place to prevent that from happening. We have decided to not have any good parts. I'm doing my part. We lost an hour. As you know, daylight savings time went into effect last night. I give it 6 months. And I would like to take a brief moment, as all moments are, I suppose, to thank my writers. You know, the writers are so specialized these days. There's a joke writer, he gives you jokes. There's a gag writer, he gives you gags. There's a head writer, he gives you... What I'm saying is things are they're specialized.
This proves that if Norm wants to be respectful as a host, he absolutely can be. It just depends on who Norm is hosting the event for. Then in May 2017, Norm Macdonald released a brand new comedy special titled Hitler's Dog, Gossip and Trickery, which was another amazing special. To me, it didn't top me doing stand-up, but I still really enjoyed it, and I think it's one of the better specials released in the last 10 years. Also in 2017, Norm voiced the character Yaphet on the TV show The Orville, who is a talking blob that keeps trying to make love to Claire. This was another goofy role for Norm where he actually ends up making an appearance later on as himself in the TV show. Yaphet's character is super funny though, and is an inspiration to all blobs in the world who don't get the representation they deserve on TV. Riveting stuff from Norm and Seth MacFarlane, truly. Then after this special, Norm would make several more late night appearances on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, and Norm did what he could to save the show, but it's pretty clear he was a much better fit with Letterman and Conan. Then in September 2018, Norm had an appearance on The Tonight Show canceled after he criticized aspects of the Me Too movement. I'll show you what he said so you can be as outraged as I am.
I'm happy the Me Too movement has slowed down a little bit. It used to be 100 women can't be lying, and then it became one woman can't lie, and then it became I believe all women, and then you're like, what? Like that Chris Hardwick guy, I really thought got the blunt end of the stick there. Louis C.K. and Roseanne Barr are friends, are two people I know. And Roseanne was so broken up after her show's reboot was canceled that I got Louis to call her. There are very few people who've gone through what they have, losing everything in a day. Of course, people will go, well, what about the victims? But you know what? The victims didn't have to go through that.
I know the scriptures say, judge not lest ye be judged, but I'm just going to come out and say it. This Norm Macdonald guy, this guy was a real jerk. No, but then Norm would go on The View of all places and clarify what he meant by these statements, and for once, the ladies of The View shut the hell up and listened to the guest. Before concluding this segment, I'd like to share a few of my favorite Norm Macdonald stories with you. Real quick, I'll show you Harlan Williams' story of the time he was hanging out with Norm Macdonald in the store.
Oh, I used to hang out with Norm Macdonald a lot. Me and Norm were really close.
God, I loved him.
And we used to go play tennis. And after we played tennis, we'd go into like the 7-Eleven. And we'd always do this thing where we go, okay, we're going to go in together. And each of us has to point at one item and make a joke about it. But I'll never forget Norm did this. It's the only one I remember. But I pointed to, you remember those things, animal crackers?
Yeah.
And I pointed to the animal crackers, and Norm just goes, that horse cock didn't taste very good.
Second of all, one time Artie Lang was opening for Norm at a theater in San Francisco, California, and Norm told Artie about some of the joke restrictions. I'll let Artie tell the story because it's so goddamn funny.
And we did about 7 cities, so we came to San Francisco, and I had only done a club here. And Norm comes up to me, and this was good. Norm just loved torturing people, and he does it in the most brilliant way. Right. He comes up to me and goes, listen, man, we're in fucking San Francisco. No gay shit. And I go, all right. Well, if I played San Francisco before. He goes, nah, that's like you're at a club. There's a fucking theater, man. There's critics out there. Don't fuck me, man. No gay shit. And I go, all right, fine. So I go, 20 minutes, and I have 4 seconds at that point in my life without gays. So I get through the 20 minutes. I introduce Norm. Norm walks out, and I'm listening from the back. Before he says, good to be here, you're a great crowd, nice to be here, the first thing that comes out of his mouth, hey, how about that AIDS? He goes, I read all this bad shit about AIDS, but then I read that AIDS doesn't discriminate. And that's kind of nice. And then like 10 seconds goes by, and this is what you hear him say, where are you going?
Absolutely hilarious. Norm really made Artie not do any gay jokes just so he could have them all for himself. Amazing. It's one of those things that's not funny to the audience in front of him, but funny for the audience at home who got to hear this story. Another story I really like is when Norm had a few comedians opening for him at this corporate gig, and Norm decided to go out and do time before all the younger comics went up. What followed was horrifying for the comic, but hilarious in retrospect, knowing who Norm was.
And so Norm was headlining, and I think there were 3 or 4 comics who were doing 5, maybe 8-minute sets. And at that time, it was all the material they had. They were new comics. And okay, I've polished off my set. I got these jokes. And now I'm going to go out with this guy who's a great headliner, and we're going to do this big corporate gig. At the gig, as they were starting, Norm off the top said, I'm just going to go out there and kind of warm up the crowd, do a little teaser, and then you guys do your sets when I come back. So Norm went up and apparently did everyone else's material. Did all the, is this the story?
Yeah. Oh
did
my
all their
God.
jokes. And what I loved is what I was told to me. They're like, first off, those are the only jokes we had. But the worst thing about it is Norm's jokes were better. Like our jokes were, he had 3 hours and he was going to do an hour on this show, only doing it to fuck with them.
Oh
and
my
he said, but we were just
God.
mortified because it's like, it's not like we have a lesser 5 minutes.
Right.
It's like that was everything that we he went. So I think they just went up and flopped and like tried to do crowd work and tried to, and I liked the motivelessness of it.
Yeah.
It was
I know.
Just
and then
because
you have to drive with them like for an hour.
You
afterwards.
would.
Hey, wasn't that great when I did your acts?
So are you?
Now, as a young comedian myself, this does sound like a horrifying experience, but from a third-person perspective, it's so goddamn funny. Because Norm did this just to mess with them, and they even rode together when going back to town. Once again, super messed up, but it just made me laugh really hard. Another funny Norm story is Nick Swartzen's classic story about Norm showing up late to the bar when they were supposed to hang out and watch sports.
Do you remember the time you called me up one day? You go, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm watching baseball. And you're like, can you pick me up? And I was like,
I don't drive.
I go, I'm already at the bar. I already had a couple of drinks. I want to drink and drive. I'm like, it's not far from you. I'm like, you want to take a cab? And you're like, yeah, all right, I'll meet you in a couple minutes. So I'm like, okay. So I wait. I watch a full game. I watch another full game. I watch half of another game. It's 8 o'clock at night. And I'm like fucking hammered. I leave the bar. Norm's walking into the bar. It was noon when he called me. It was 8:30 at night.
It takes
and he
me.
goes,
I know.
where are you going? And I'm like, I'm fucking hammered. I'm going home. He's like, I just got here. And I'm like, I know, you're 8 hours late. Like, well, have a fucking beer. Right? Being weird. I'm like, I'm not. I want to go. I can't walk or see.
Classic Norm again. Once he shows up 8 hours late, he gaslights a totally juiced Nick Swardson into staying at the bar for another game and another drink. What's next? Is Norm going to invite Nick over to have a chicken at his place? These were just a few of my favorite Norm Macdonald stories to close out this segment. I hope you really enjoyed them. This was the late night television era.
Too bad that you had to get caught. That's not like you to lose face.
3 years ago today, on September 14th, 2021, Norm Macdonald lost his life to acute leukemia at the age of 61. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that O.J. Simpson changed his name that quickly to acute leukemia. Norm's death is certainly the saddest thing to happen in the month of September. Norm was a comedian in every sense of the word. All that was important in Norm was being funny and making the audience laugh. The best part about Norm's comedy is it never pandered because he always thought about what made him laugh and decided to share that with whoever sat in front of him that night. He was an incredibly smart man who loved Russian literature and mathematics, who played the dumb guy to not alienate his audience. We got to see nuggets of Norm's true intellect when he spoke sincerely on podcasts like the WTF Mark Maron show, and even when he quote tweeted Neil deGrasse Tyson and schooled him about something he tweeted that was purely illogical. With all the brains in the world, all Norm ever wanted to do was make us laugh, and by God did he succeed. Norm always said that it's one thing to make someone laugh, but it's another thing to make someone smile, and by God, he made us all smile too. He was a master of delivery and the humorous story as described by Mark Twain in his short novel titled How to Tell a Story in Others. The final set of stand-up comedy that Norm Macdonald ever did was at the Hollywood Improv in this video right here. If you haven't seen this clip of Norm yet, I highly recommend you watch it if you're a fan, because this is some of the best comedy in the world, where he covered the pandemic right around the time it was beginning, and it's splendid to watch. He also had a posthumous special release titled Nothing Special, and it's a beautiful conclusion to the saga of Norm Macdonald. On top of all of that, Norm is just a deeply thoughtful human being with a heart of gold. If you're upset the way I am, and you have a Norm-sized hole in your heart, take this bit of advice from Norm himself. Take all the love you have for him and his comedy, and give it freely to all that you meet. I know he'd probably call me gay like Chris Kattan if he saw how long I spent talking about him in this video, but I'll take that one right on the chin. Long live Norm Macdonald. He's an inspiration to comedians and people everywhere. I speak for all of us when I say he and his comedy legacy will never be forgotten, and I will do the best I can to continue sharing my favorite memories of him for all of us to enjoy. This was a complete timeline of Norm Macdonald's legacy. I hope you enjoyed. Hey everyone, thanks for watching all the way to the end. 1 year ago today, I released this video about Norm Macdonald, and it was like a little mini documentary / deep dive I did on him. But there were a lot of problems with the video. You know, the sound effects were too loud, glaring mispronunciations, and aside from those like smaller things, I didn't feel like I did an adequate job of giving Norm justice and really just diving into all the cool things he's done throughout his career. But I really just wanted to make, in my opinion, a much better video that can withstand the test of time on Norm's entire comedy legacy and why I thought it was amazing, because, you know, I'm a young comedian myself, and Norm has been an inspiration for me and, you know, so many other people in this craft as to what a comedian should be and what they should strive to achieve in their career. But once again, guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications. Send this to somebody you think would like it, because, you know, there's a lot of Norm fans out there, and I think a lot of them would take something away from this video, even if you already knew all the information. But anyway, guys, take care of your friends, family, and loved ones. I love you, and I'll see you in the next video. It's 9/11. That's going in.